Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Bat Around, a spooky edition of the Bat Around because it's Halloween weekend. There's nothing spooky about this show unless you're looking at Zach's face in the camera. I'm Paul
Good
Valley.
one.
He's Zach Goodman. This is the Bat Around coming to you from our Towson studios on a cool, crisp, but lovely Saturday, fall Saturday morning here in the Baltimore metropolitan area. Today's show is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Online sports betting will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks. PressBox is your source for the best offers and sign-up incentives. Starting now, you can get a $100 pre-registration credit from our friends at FanDuel by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. The $100 credit is in addition to the new user promo you will get when they go live. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now to get your $100 FanDuel pre-registration bonus credit. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. It's exciting stuff, man.
Yeah.
Online sports betting. I have never placed a sports bet. I've thought about it a couple of different times, but I don't live close to any casino, right? So it's like I don't feel like getting in my car, driving 45 minutes to an hour, paying for parking, going inside the casino and trying to place a bet just to come back home. Right? So if I can do this on my phone now, are you kidding me? Don't tell my wife. She'll kill me. She will be on the run for murder.
If you can bet on the Baltimore Ravens blowing a fourth quarter lead, I think you'd have a pretty safe bet every week.
They've held strong 2 games in a row. And when I say they've held strong, they've allowed fourth quarter points and held on by the skin of their teeth. But they've managed to win 2 in a row and they're in first place. And the Bengals are without Jamar Chase for an extended period. So things are looking up, and the Ravens only play 1 game in the next 23 days. So they have an opportunity to get healthy. David Ajabo, Tyus Bowser should be back by the time they come back from their extended break. All good things in for the Ravens flock right now, but that's a topic for later in the show. Last night, World Series, Game 1, instant classic. You're watching this game, right? And the Astros go up 5-0. Kyle Tucker, in the first 3 innings, right? Kyle Tucker hits 2 home runs, drives in 4 in the first 3 innings. They're up 5-0, and you're like, nice run by the Phillies, but the Astros are a different breed, right? Wrong. Phillies score 3 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th on a JT Realmuto double, 2-run double to tie the game. Then nobody scores again until we get to the 10th inning. And then in the top of the 10th, Realmuto leads off with a home run. Drives in the last 3 runs of the game. He plays the hero. Phillies go on to win that game 6-5. The big play of the game. Jose Altuve in the bottom of the 9th. 2 outs. Bloops a base hit into center field. Only his 4th hit in 37 postseason at-bats.
Yeah.
And although he is 4 for his last 12.
But usually a guy you expect to do a lot more in the playoffs.
Well, if you had told me that, the Astros would be undefeated going into the first game of the World Series this postseason, and that they'd be playing in the World Series, and Jose Altuve started 0 for 25 in this postseason, there's no way I would have believed you. There's no way that their fire starter, their igniter, is 0 for 25 and they get to the World Series.
Yeah.
But that's where we are, and without losing a game. But that's where we are. In this World Series, bottom of the 9th, he bloops only his 4th postseason hit into center field. He steals second. Really close play. Safe or out, in your opinion?
Safe.
Yeah, I think he's safe too. Because the ball, even though it's touching the glove and it's touching his leg at the same time before it gets to the bag, it's not in the glove.
I usually defer to safe anyway. When it's a close play, usually they're safe.
It's like NFL replay. There's not enough evidence to overturn the call on the field. Now, the question is, if they had called him out on the field, would that have stood?
Well, usually it does. I mean, I think it's like 75 or 80% of the time the call on the field stands.
Right. But this one is, it's a question mark because, again, it's touching the glove. It's touching the ball's touching the glove. It's touching Altuve's leg. He's not on the base yet, but he doesn't have complete control of this ball. It's not in the webbing of the glove. He hasn't brought it in yet. It's tricky. They stayed with the ruling on the field safe. So now Altuve's on second base with 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. And who's the batter after him? Is that
I did not see that part, actually. I do not know.
Well, the next batter bloops one down the right field line. Castellanos is on his horse. Not the greatest defender.
No.
Makes this
not at all.
Sliding shoestring grab.
Yeah, beautiful grab.
Saves the game. See, I mean, how many Phillies fans threw up in their mouths on that play?
All of them.
If he doesn't catch that ball, the game's over.
Correct.
There's 2 outs. Altuve's off on contact from second base.
Yeah.
And that ball, Altuve's probably already scored at the point that he catches the ball. The game's over. Hell of a catch and a huge moment for Castellanos, who had his struggles this year for sure.
Right.
Got that big contract after being a monstrous hitter for the Reds, and he comes over and he does diddly for them this regular season. Had 1 RBI in the NLCS. Did have an RBI base hit last night, but big catch in a big moment for Castellanos. Gives JT Realmuto the opportunity to hit that leadoff Oppo Taco in the top of the 10th inning. Phillies go on to win the game 6-5. Like I said, instant classic. Are the Phillies a team of destiny, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly look like it. They've been pretty dominant, but the Astros have been too, right? I mean, the Astros lost their first game last night, the entire postseason. Mm-hmm. The Astros look like, if you're going to say a team of destiny is one of these two teams, I'd probably say it's the Astros because they haven't lost in the postseason until last night. They've looked completely dominant, and they've dominated every team they've played so far. So the Astros, to me, they're one of the best teams we've seen in a long time. And it's surprising to me because they did lose. Over the past few years, they've lost a few guys. I mean, they haven't had George Springer now for 2 years. And there's
Carlos Correa.
No Carlos Correa this year, even though Jeremy Pena stepped up in a big way. He's been really good.
Gurriel hasn't been the player.
No.
But he's 39 years old.
Right, but when he was 35, he was one of the best players in baseball for a little bit.
Yeah, and Jose Altuve hasn't been hitting this postseason. And Alvarez, ever since the division series, hasn't hit.
And Alex Bregman, one of the best players in baseball in 2019, has been relatively average since then. I mean, he's always he's going to be like a 3-WAR player every year or greater than that, but he's a guy who isn't the MVP candidate year to year that he was before. They've lost a lot talent-wise, yet they continue to be one of the best teams in baseball year in, year out. So I think there's a team of destiny. It's that one. Mm-hmm. But the Phillies, certainly, again, they've dominated just almost as much as the Astros have. And it was funny because I was talking about Castellanos as a guy who could really be the important piece because he did struggle in the regular season. And I said maybe he breaks out in the playoffs and maybe has some kind of David Freese, kind of playoff experience. But so far it's looking pretty good. But he's definitely got to get hot at the plate. That would be a really important thing. But people also forget he's not an outfielder by trade. So
he was a third baseman.
Third baseman,
yeah. Look, the Astros, and I have this in my notes, where do they go down as far as one of the greatest teams of all time? They won 106 games this year. They didn't lose a single game en route to the World Series appearance. The first game of the World Series was their first loss of the entire postseason.
Yeah.
The pitching staff has this isn't the best offense we've ever seen the Houston Astros post up.
No.
Kyle Tucker's a beast. Yordan Alvarez is a beast amongst beasts, right? And I mean, Jose Altuve had the third best slugging, OPS in all of baseball. Hit 300 this year with 28 home runs. That's a dog.
Yeah,
man.
oh yeah.
And Alex Bregman's a good player. He's not great like we thought he was, but he's a good player. But that pitching staff has absolutely carried them.
Yeah.
Where do they go down? I mean, look, you have to go back a long way, 150 years.
Sure.
So you're not going to you can't quantify or qualify for that matter how good this Astros team is amongst all the greatest teams of all time, but you've got to put them up there, especially when you consider the fact that as a whole, 4 World Series appearances in 6 years, 6 straight ALCS appearances. I mean, this is one of the greatest franchises, one of the greatest runs from a franchise we've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, that 2017 team was really special. And I think that's the only team where they've been in the World Series that I think is better than this one. That 2017 team obviously won. They had every piece. If you go back and look at that roster, that was a team that was stacked at every single position. I mean, there wasn't a position missing. It was like where the prime Dodgers always are in 20. I guess you could say in 2020, the Dodgers were very similar to how the Astros were in 2017 because you're just stacked at every position and you have depth at every single spot. I wouldn't say this team is similar in that way, but I think this team, almost more than the 2017 team, has, I don't want to say an underdog feeling to it, but I didn't hear a lot about the Astros all season. I heard about the Yankees. I heard about the Mets. I heard about the Braves. I didn't hear about the Astros. They weren't a team that was being heavily publicized. And it almost gives you, and the same way with the Phillies, obviously, because they came in third in their division, it almost gives you a little bit of that underdog feeling. But then you look at the Phillies, and they're probably more of an underdog. But maybe that's one of the reasons you would consider this team one of the greatest of all time, because, frankly, they weren't expected to do this. I don't think they were.
Let me put it to you this way, and I'll do a comparison here. So I've worked in restaurants a long time, and when I worked at one particular restaurant for a really long time, I won Employee of the Month like my second or third year there, and then I never won again. And they told me that my standard every day was Employee of the Month level. So they legitimately told me I would never win Employee of the Month because that was my standard.
Doesn't really sound fair.
It's not fair, but but that was my standard, right?
Yeah.
Now the restaurant that I've been working in, part-time here now, I've worked there for 4 years, and I've never won Employee of the Month. Now, Employee of the Month is only something we've been doing for the last year, but I've never won because I'm the guy that shows up and does my job day in and day out. They don't have to worry about me. There's Paul. He just shows up. He rocks it out, and then he leaves. And they don't have to worry about me, so they also don't have to think about me. That's what the Astros are, right?
Yeah.
The Astros just show up day in and day out, and we're at the point now where you're not thinking about them because this is just what they do. And then you look up at the standings at the end of the year, and they've got 106 wins, and they're in the World Series again.
Yeah.
Steady Eddie. This is just what they do day in, day out, year after year, to the point where it's expected, so we don't need to talk about them. The Yankees they've been one of the better teams in baseball, but they haven't been the best team in baseball in a really long time. The Dodgers are in LA. They spend $300 million a year, so and they have an all-star roster. You're going to talk about them. The Mets are in New York. The Braves are the defending world champions. You're going to talk about them. But then there's the Astros. They just show up and put their head down and go to work every single day.
Well, I think that wasn't the case before 2017, and maybe that's why the 2017 team has all of that glamour around them, I guess is the word you would use. I mean, they were such a heavily publicized team because, again, that long rebuild and finally, culminated into a World Series win in 2017, and that was a big thing for them. That was huge. And ever since then, they've been consistent. They've been so consistently good, and they're in the World Series almost at this point year in, year out. So, yeah, you're right. They just show up, they win, they do their thing.
Mm-hmm, exactly, and it's become what's expected of them. This sounds way better, though. This sounds way better to me.
I like it, too.
The pitching. The Phillies' pitching has been dominant all postseason. The Astros' pitching has been dominant all year. And yet, Aaron Nola, 2 consecutive starts where he gets lit up. 4 1/3 innings pitched last night, 6 hits, 2 home runs, 5 earned runs. Justin Verlander, 5 innings pitched, the same exact line minus the 2 home runs. They both had two walks and 5 strikeouts, 6 hits, 5 earned runs allowed.
Yeah.
Justin Verlander winless in 7 career World Series starts with a 6.07 ERA. The pitching let both teams down last night. The Phillies were able to overcome in the last minute. Astros were not. They got a better matchup. They got another good matchup going today. You got Wheeler versus Valdez tonight. Are you shocked at how Verlander was perfect the first time through the order last night, and then he gives up 3 in the 4th and 2 in the 5th. Were you surprised at how the pitching went last night to start the game?
Well, I think both of these teams have pitched better than I expected in this postseason. I think both of these teams, frankly, are known for the bats. Again, I mean, you have so much firepower on each side, especially the Phillies. They are hands down known for the bats. You have Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos. There's guys on that team. Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott. There is Gene Segura, even if you want to throw him into that conversation. There's so many guys on that team, and that's who and Real Muto, how am I forgetting him? There's so many guys on that team that I look at on the hitting side that you forget that they have guys like Nola and Wheeler and Ranger Suarez, who's been surprisingly really good all year.
And Noah Syndergaard.
And, of course, Noah Syndergaard.
Who's like a 5 for them.
Right, and that was one of the things that I was very excited about, the trade deadline. They got him because that kind of solidified that back end of that rotation for them. They have very underrated pitching. Zach Wheeler, if you look at his numbers, has been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past few years. It's hands down, he has been. Aaron Nola doesn't look so far like he's a postseason guy. He doesn't look like a clutch postseason pitcher, but then again, we haven't seen the body of work that really
no runs allowed in his first 2 postseason starts this year.
That's
last
true.
2 he's been bad.
The last 2 he's been really bad. But that's the great postseason pitchers are the ones that consistently do it all year. So maybe it's that I don't pay attention to the pitching as much for these teams, but it's surprised me a little bit. Just how interesting it's been. It's been really up and down for them. There's been some starters who have been putting up really good numbers, like Ranger Suarez, and then some starters like Aaron Nola who haven't quite done that. And Justin Verlander last night, if you want to get to him, that's a bit of a surprise. He's someone who frankly, his entire career has gotten hit around a bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he wasn't great his last start out either. And yet the Astros still they've only lost the one game in this postseason. Now, you mentioned the Phillies are known for their bats, and Bryce Harper is reason 1A that they're in the World Series. NLCS MVP, 2-time National League MVP, a Rookie of the Year, a 7-time All-Star.
Yeah.
He is.
What else?
He is arguably. You can make Shohei Ohtani notwithstanding, you can make an argument that Bryce Harper is the best all-around position player in baseball.
Well, he did win MVP.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that argument, and he's carried this team offensively. Yeah. Now, look, he's had a lot of help in the postseason too, but I mean, he's been that guy, the steady guy, where it's just like, you know what, this is my team, this is our year, get on my back.
Yeah,
and that's what he's done. That 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning to put them into the World Series in Game 5. Zach, I got to tell you, man, that is maybe one of my favorite moments of all time. That moment, that home run, and when they played the video to the Moneyball, music,
I love that. Yeah,
for the Scott Hatteberg walk-off homer for win 20 in a row. That moment was absolutely magical, and he hit it, and he watches it right, and then he walks and he looks at his dugout, and he does a little phone call thing, and then he highlights Phillies and throws the hands down like it's done.
Yeah.
Rounds first base, does a little I love you sign with his hand out to the crowd.
Yeah.
Runs around the bases. And my favorite part of this moment, aside from the fact that he just hit the biggest home run of his career and maybe the biggest home run in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies, he crosses home plate, he says something to the camera, and then he goes and he high-fives and fist bumps his teammates. He doesn't showboat. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't look overly exuberant. You look at his face, and this is a man who has realized in this moment the enormity of what he had just done.
Yeah.
Realizes how huge this moment is. And he almost seems, for lack of a better term, overwhelmed by what he's just done.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber's looking him in the face like, do you realize what you just effing did?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. This is a guy who's taking in the moment. He's letting the fans have this moment. He's not making it about himself. He's making it about the Phillies. He's making it about the fans, about the franchise, about the city. No rah-rah, no pomp and circumstance, no jumping up and down. To me, that was the most endearing moment in the Bryce Harper Philadelphia Phillies era. What he just did and not making it about himself. You're not going to find a bigger moment in the history of that franchise. Probably my favorite postseason moment of all time that doesn't involve the Orioles. It was so incredible. And I'm a big Bryce Harper fan.
Yeah, I know you are.
He's just a clean-cut dude. He doesn't do anything wrong in the offseason. He took less money to go play for an organization with no opt-outs, to have the stability of being in one place for the rest of his career. And like I said, he is worth so much more than the $25 million a year he's making, but he doesn't care because he's there to play baseball and win championships, and that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Worth every penny. Bryce Harper, 100%. I already love the dude. 100% endeared himself to me. Within that moment. Your thoughts on that home run?
Well, I think there's been a lot of, you talk about pomp and circumstance, and that's kind of surrounded Bryce Harper for his career. I mean, he's a guy who was on Sports Illustrated cover at 16 years old.
Right.
He's a guy who consistently throughout his high school career, and then I think he played 1 year in community college and then was drafted
when he should have been a senior in high school.
When he should have been a senior in high school, he played in community college. He was drafted from there and was this phenom. Go ahead.
In 2012, they did a commercial, a black and white commercial, talking about legends of the game and Hall of Famers, and Bryce Harper's in that commercial in his rookie season.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that's been romanticized from the beginning. He's a guy who everyone thought would be this superstar, and I think there were a lot of expectations for him to live up to when it came to Washington. And, his first few years, he was unreal. He won an MVP really early in his career. I think 2015 it was. He had like 49 home runs and had an OPS of over 1,200. The guy was unreal. One of the best seasons ever. And then he had a few down years because I think he put a lot of pressure on himself. And again, that pomp and circumstance, if you want to use those words, surrounding him was so great. And there's so much expectation on Bryce Harper's back. I felt that this year, the Bryce Harper we saw was kind of a different one. I thought the ego wasn't there as much. He was more of a team player. And I think that goes into what the Phillies have built as a culture.
Well, I think we saw that last year, too.
And I think you're right. That's true. But the Phillies are a team that won 87 games this year. They are not the best team in baseball, and they were I think, far from it this year. But they won, and they've continued to win because of an incredible culture and teamwork and these guys just kind of rallying with each other and putting the team on their back. Bryce Harper this year, and like you said last year as well, looks like a different player to me. He looks like he wants to win for the team and not just himself. And that's a really big difference. And when he hit that home run, you're right, it was an incredible moment, iconic.
No, it was absolute. I love that terminology, iconic. Yeah. It was absolutely iconic. It's the biggest home run in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, watching the fans in that video, just go back and watch the fans again. It's incredible.
Have you seen the view
from
behind him off to the side?
I saw the Moneyball one too.
Absolutely iconic moment. Thank you. That's the best way that we could put it. It's an iconic moment. You're going to see the highlight of that home run for the rest of time.
Yeah,
it's one of the biggest home runs in the history of the postseason. And it's just the way that he took it all in and made it about the team and the fans was just absolutely unbelievable to me. I loved every bit of it. He's worth every penny.
That's what good players should be doing in the postseason.
Yeah, that's what they paid him for. That's exactly what they paid him for, right? Now, the Phillies, we talked about how more so known for their bats. They weren't the best. They won 4 more games than the Baltimore Orioles this year.
Right.
22-29 after 51 games. They fired Joe Girardi, who was brought in to take a good team and make them great and get them to make a run like this. And he couldn't get the job done. There were reports when he was with the Yankees that he lost the locker room, that like he was too old school and all that. They had to fight. They make Rob Thompson, Matchbox 20. I wanna push you around. Anyway, they make Rob Thompson the interim manager. They take that tag off after they go. I think it was 65 and 46 the rest of the way. They take that tag off of him, give him a 2-year extension, a vote of confidence. They had to fend off the Brewers at the end of the year. The Brewers made a run. The Phillies held them off by 1 game to get into the postseason, and now they're 3 wins away from the World Series. How improbable has this run been in your eyes?
Extremely. Again, we talk about the team not being quite as talented as, and again, winning 4 more games than the Baltimore Orioles. They're not as talented as a lot of teams you'll see go to the World Series. They're probably one of the least talented teams we've seen in the World Series in a while. But again, I think it's that culture they cultivated there that's been so important for them. They are, across their positions, there's some really great players. I mean, Bryce Harper, again, we talked about Kyle Schwarber, Zach Wheeler. There's some really great players in this team, but they don't have the stacked roster like the New York Yankees do, or the Los Angeles Dodgers, or any of the other playoff teams. I think they were up there with the Rays for the least talented playoff team this year. So it's incredible.
I don't know about all that. They have 3,
That's
maybe 4. It is your, and it's not a bad opinion. You know, it's your opinion. My opinion is they have 3 or 4 really good starters.
They do.
They have, I mean, Kyle Schwarber led the National League in home runs, 2nd in the majors, right? Bryce Harper, 2-time MVP. JT Realmuto, arguably the best catcher in baseball. Apologies to Adley Rutschman. He hasn't reached that level yet, but he's getting there quick.
He's getting there.
Nick Castellanos, and he had a down year. I expect him to bounce back next year and have a better year. Then you look at Alec Boehm came on, Stock came on. Rhys Hoskins had a solid year and has had a decent, not a lot of hits, but his hits have been big. Like 5 home runs in the postseason. This is it's a good lineup, a good rotation. Their bullpen is probably why they faltered a bit this year.
But it was great last night.
Yeah, but it was great last night. It's been great this postseason.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they were maybe the second least talented team behind the Rays.
Fair enough.
But they weren't. They're not as talented as the Dodgers or the Braves
or even the Padres
or the you know what they aren't. But they're a good baseball team. That's why they're there.
I mean, I remember saying as soon as Joe Girardi was fired, I think I said it on the show, that I didn't really think he was the right choice. I never really felt like he was. Joe Girardi succeeded with the Yankees because the Yankees were always really good. They had so many good players. I mean, go back and look at those rosters. They're stacked.
And his temperament, he was a former Yankee. His temperament fit the culture that the front office wanted to put in place. But as the years go on, you're getting younger players who are more modernized, and that's going to wear on people.
I mean, look at the change that Alec Boehm has made just since Rob Thompson's taken over. It's huge. I mean, Alec Boehm is not one of the better third basemen in baseball yet, but he's certainly taken a big step forward. He really struggled under Joe Girardi, and I don't know if that's just his personal development or what that is, but it's notable.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. Now, let's bring back Mickey Moniak and see what he can... No, I'm just kidding.
Number 1 overall pick.
Right? It's amazing. I'd never even heard of him. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2016, and before this year, I'd never even heard of him. I guess I'd heard of him, but I didn't realize he had been the number 1 overall.
Just not
pick.
exactly notable,
right?
Because he
never done anything.
He fell out of the prospect rankings, the top 100, pretty quickly because he struggled. He hit like 200 his first 2 years in the minors, so he just never really got anywhere.
Trouble with the curve. Before we get to Stan, I do want to talk a little bit about the Orioles. This is an Orioles-centric show. They're not in the postseason, so we'll have plenty of time after this week because the World Series will probably be over by the time we do our next show. Maybe not. Maybe it goes 7 games. But
yeah.
So we'll talk about the World Series again throughout this show. But I do want to talk Orioles making a little bit of news here. Brandon Hyde named the Sporting News and American League Manager of the Year. It's not the official award, but it's still nice for him to get the recognition.
See, I actually wasn't aware of that. I did not know that there was a more official award than that.
No, there's the Major League Baseball awards. Sporting News, like Ryan Mountcastle was a Sporting News Rookie of the Year last year. That's voted on by the players, right? But then he didn't even finish as a finalist for the actual award, the baseball award. Buck Showalter won the Sporting News National League Manager of the Year for the 4th time. Ramon Arias and Cedric Mullins named Gold Glove finalists Jorge Mateo, who wins the Fielding Bible award for best defensive shortstop in all of Major League Baseball. Had by far and away the best defensive metrics of any shortstop in either league.
Yeah.
Not a finalist for the Gold Glove, which makes me think if he had hit 250 with a 321 base percentage, 15 home runs, 70 RBIs, and led the American League in stolen bases, is he a finalist? It's I have to imagine if his offensive numbers are better, if his batting average is what his own base percentage was, which was 267.
Yeah.
Is he a finalist for the Gold Glove? Because to me, it seems like a popularity contest.
Well, that's what I said last week in sounding off, that I did it on the fact that it is a popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy, we talked about Derek Jeter and the amount of Gold Gloves.
5 Gold Gloves.
Five
Gold
Gloves he
shortstop
won.
of all time.
Right, and I think since the days of Brooks Robinson winning his 16, I think it's changed a lot. I think back then it was so much more of you get it because of how good you are and not so much of what the team you play for and what position you play. Derek Jeter is a great example, but there's so many other guys. I talked about Dalton Varsho being eligible in 2 positions, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm not a whole big fan of the Gold Glove thing. Not a big fan. But so I'm not really upset at that. I look at Mateo and I congratulate him for a great season.
Yeah.
He played really well in defense.
Fielding Bible Defensive Player of the Year at shortstop. You also look at the fact that Ramon Arias is a finalist at third base, despite the fact he played 86 games.
Yeah,
at third base. He was really good. He was clearly the best defensive third baseman in the American League, but he only played 86 games there because of injury he's so versatile. He's an elite defender at second base also, and I think that could be his spot next year. We shall see. We got to get Stan the Fan on the line. While Zach does that, I want to remind you the Press Box's Glenn Clark Radio is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or you can listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Maryland quarterback Billy Edwards, former Ravens head coach Brian Billick, and offensive coordinator Jim Caldwell, Wizards guard Will Barton, and Pacers forward and former Terp Jalen Smith. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. Joining us now for his weekly segment, he is Stan the Fan. Charles, Stan, good morning. How are you?
I am fine, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing well also. Thank you for asking. Stan, did you stay up and catch that whole game? It ran pretty late.
Yes, I watched every pitch of the game. Yes, I did.
Phillies win 6-5 in 10 innings. The Astros, they take a 5-0 lead on 2 Kyle Tucker home runs and 4 RBIs in the first 3 innings. Phillies score 3 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th. Is this an instant classic last night?
Pretty darn close. It was a very entertaining game. I did not give the Phillies much of a shot when they fell behind 5-0 after Kyle Tucker's second home run and the way Verlander looked. But then when it started to fall apart for Verlander, I just kept saying, geez, that thing about his earned run average, in the postseason, in the World Series, and the fact he had never won a World Series game, you wonder if it just sort of, here's a guy who's pitched tons of big games, but in the biggest games, he sort of, chokes it a little bit. You know, I hate to call Justin Verlander a choke, but, the evidence is there. He's not lived up to the moment.
No, it's crazy.
I was talking about this with Glenn and Tyler Kepner, the New York Times baseball writer. There's a famous quote, and I think it was by the late Johnny Padres, who was a big star with the Brooklyn and L.A. Dodgers for a long time, and then a long-time pitching coach. He said that greatness in big moments isn't that you step up your performance. It's that you're able to stay at the same level of performance while others recede from that level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You catch what that's about?
Yes, sir.
So, Justin Verlander, there must be something to this, that he sort of he's not keeping his even keel. He gets caught up emotionally in the moment.
Well, it's
that's
certainly
that's the way I see it.
It's the fourth World Series that he's pitched in. He's winless now in 7 starts with a 6.07 ERA. But you look at him and you think of Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And yet, when he gets to the postseason, he falls apart. Yet these are the two guys who are 1 and 2 in career postseason strikeouts. So the greatness is still there, but they kind of fall apart under the brightest of lights. It's just a crazy thing to see.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, both of them are obviously first ballot Hall of Fame pitchers.
Absolutely. But not everybody's built for the bright lights. Now, you're never going to convince me that they can't go out and win you a game, but it's certainly glaring. Stan, that catch by Castellanos in the bottom of the ninth inning, Altuve with 2 outs gets that bloop single. He steals second with 2 down, and then the bloop down the right field line. That ball drops in. Altuve scores easily.
Right.
And Castellanos, not known for his defense in right field, the third baseman by trade, makes this sliding shoestring grab to save the game, to give way for the JT Realmuto game-winning home run in the top of the 10th. How incredible and how big was that catch?
It was absolutely huge. And Castellanos is not really known for his defense.
Right.
But he had a good read on the ball. He was playing deep. I mean, Peña's a deep threat, but you can't play too deep there with Altuve at second base.
Mm-hmm.
I just was amazed that they didn't do a better job at least tossing over one time on Altuve, though.
Right.
I mean, the game there is that he's going to try and run.
Oh, absolutely.
And they just missed him by a hair. The whole sequence was very exciting, from Altuve's single through Realmuto's home run, and then through how they just barely got through that inning, with David Robertson.
Yeah.
I like Robertson. A lot, and A-Rod mentioned him in the post-game show, that he's a real gamer. He had an unfortunate turn in Philadelphia like 2 or 3 years ago. They gave him some big money, and they reacquired him this year where he'd been pitching for the Cubs. And I thought he pitched, well last night. He was gutsy. There's no question about it. It was imperative that the Phillies win that game for them to have a real chance at this series.
Well, yeah, you figure they have to at least split in Houston to have a shot at winning this series. And you speak of Robertson. He had that Tommy John surgery and the poor rehab from that. The people thought that he was maybe done. He goes out and has a huge year for the Cubs and the Phillies this year. And Stan, he's a free agent at the end of the year. And the Orioles are going to be looking for maybe some relief help. So that's something to keep an eye on. You look at the Astros, Stan, 106 wins. They were undefeated in the postseason until losing last night to the Phillies. A lot of great teams in the history of baseball. You look at every world champion is a good team is a good or great team in their own right. But this Astros team Zach and I were talking about this. All the talk this year was the Yankees, the Mets, the Braves, the Dodgers, and then ho-hum, here's the Astros winning 106 games, reaching their sixth straight ALCS fourth World Series in 6 years. Where do they go down are they one of the greatest teams of all time if they finish this thing out and win the World Series?
They'll start to be, they start to be, they've still got a taint on them from 6 years ago, or 5 years ago. There's no question about that. So it would certainly start to, put them in a higher esteem. There's no question about it. No question about it.
And then Aledmus Diaz last night, you mentioned that they still have the stain on them from 2017. He intentionally tries to lean into consecutive pitches. He gets hit by the pitch, and the umpire's like, no, get back here. Is that more glaring because of that stain from 2017?
No, because he wasn't on the team in 2017.
Fair enough.
No, I don't see anything. I think that was a sort of a poor attempt at getting on base.
Yeah, it doesn't show a lot of self-confidence.
I applaud the umpire and the you looked at the replay and Dusty never even came out. It was pretty darn obvious.
Yeah, it was clear. It was clear. Conversely, Phillies, they're up 1-0. They're 3 wins away from the World Series, despite barely hanging on to the third wild card, winning just 87 games this year. Before we talk about how unlikely of a champion they are, you look at what they did, what Bryce Harper did specifically. Bottom of the 8th, 2 outs, tying run on base. He hits a 2-run homer to put them up 4-3 and put them into the World Series. Stan, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest postseason moments of all time. What are your thoughts on that home run by Bryce Harper? Obviously the biggest home run of his career. Is it one of the biggest home runs in the history of the Phillies?
That was really a very tense at-bat with a great hitter going up against a pitcher who, albeit doesn't have the bona fide, career that Harper has, but he was on his game too. He was throwing 99, 100 miles an hour. But Harper was on just about every pitch. Mm-hmm. He was fouling a couple off. But he is one confident hitter. There's no question about it.
Stan, his 2-strike approach to me is a thing of beauty. When he gets to 2 strikes, he spreads the legs in the batting stance. He puts his weight on his back leg. Doesn't do the leg kick. He just turns on the ball of that front foot so that he can let the ball get as deep as possible before to recognize the pitch and try and either foul it off or put it in play and go with the pitch. He does that, hits the 2-run homer to the opposite field. Bryce Harper, to me, is just an elite hitter. Do you agree?
Yes, no question about it.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
Now, the Phillies, again, we mentioned they kind of backed into the playoffs, barely holding off the Brewers, who made a late season push. They get in with 87 wins, and next thing you know, they're 3 wins from the World Series. How unlikely of a champion are the Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, they've got 3 more games to win to be a champion, but to be even where they are right now, is a real testament to the general manager and the manager that he hired to take over. Again, not to quote A-Rod extensively, but you tend to think of this guy as a Rob Thompson as sort of like a first time manager and all that. I mean, he was a coach with those great Yankee teams. I mean, he's got 5 rings. A-Rod said. I didn't realize that until last night. I mean, it's clear he was coaching for Girardi in 2009, but he must have coached on some of those other teams, under Joe Torre.
Stan,
this is a guy who's been around. He's been around winning, and he knows how to win. The club, clearly, the biggest thing about the Phillies is what it says about Joe Girardi. This is a guy who was pretty darn cocky back when Andy McPhail wanted to hire him as a manager of the Orioles when he took over, because he had him as a catcher with the Cubs. And he played it the right way. He didn't want to be part of a rebuild. He knew if he waited out that year, he had a shot at the Yankee job, and it all played out, and he got the Yankee job. And he won a World Series pretty quickly as manager of the Yankees. And then he sort of, I won't say rested on his laurels, but he's got a way of doing things. And he and the Yankees sort of parted ways over his inability to really embrace what they wanted to do, analytically. And I would say the same thing in Philadelphia. Go ahead.
Stan, Joe Girardi out with the Yankees, out with the Phillies, kind of for the same reason. Does he get another managing job in baseball, or is he pretty much cooked?
Talked to Tyler Kepner about that as well. That was my last question for him because he covered him very extensively, and he seemed to give the impression he didn't think it was anywhere near a slam dunk that he'll be back managing again.
Stan, I was talking about this a few minutes ago on the show, that Alec Boehm, who was a top prospect for a while for the Phillies, really took a big step forward this year. And it seems like to me he kind of found his place in that lineup, found his place in that team. And he was a guy who even said, to paraphrase, "Get me out of here." Midway through the season, he mouthed that into the camera, and everyone saw it, and it became a big thing. But now, he made a great defensive play last night. So far, he's not having the greatest postseason, but he did only hit 280 with a 315 on-base percentage during this year. But it looks to me like he's taken a bit of a step forward and kind of found his spot in Philly. Would you credit that to Rob Thompson, the new Phillies manager?
I'm not sure of the dynamic there, who's the hitting coach, but there's no question that Boehm really was the big player. We can look at Bryce Harper now, and we can look at Real Muto and Schwarber and Castellanos. They're of course big players.
Yeah.
But Boehm was the guy when Harper went down. Boehm really stepped up and was kind of otherworldly for about a month.
Yeah.
Until the other guys really came along. So while he's not the most valuable Philly over the course of the year, he really is the unsung hero, and I love that player. I think he's a terrific player.
Yeah, he really came into his own this year. Like you said, the way he stepped up when Harper went down was huge for the Phillies, and without him, they may not be here.
Big at bat last night, getting that double down the left field line.
Yeah, to get things started there in the fifth inning. Now, Stan, we mentioned the Phillies, they needed to at least split in Houston. They've got Zach Wheeler going up against Framber Valdez tonight. If the Phillies find a way to win Game 2, does this series get back to Houston?
I would still say it does get back to Houston because the Phillies were very fortunate to win the game last night. When you fall behind. Look at the record. What was it? Something like 500 and something to 18. Team. I forget the win-loss record when you have a 5-run lead.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, there was some stat that it just sort of like, how the stat shows up a team. Their record is 82 and 3 in the 8th inning if they led. Right. It's sort of like that kind of record if you have a 5-run lead in a World Series game. So the Phillies were very fortunate to win that game. Their problem is going to be, and I was hoping they could steal Game 1. Valdez has really got to be on tonight to beat Wheeler because Wheeler is probably a hair more dominant than Valdez. I mean, Valdez is real good. If Wheeler's on, it's going to be like a really taut pitching, duel tonight. But their problem has always been who's going to win 3, 4, and 5, or who's pitching in 3, 4, and 5. And I think Rob Thompson really gambled by putting Suarez in last night. I think he knew that he had to get a little bit of length there, and he matched up well when he brought him into the ball game. But I would say it still gets back to Houston. Even if they win tonight,
Phillies could go up 3-0 and you still can't count out the Houston Astros. They're too good. They're too good. They're too well run. Now, when we last talked, Stan, you said you wouldn't be surprised if we woke up last Monday morning and the Yankees Astros were tied 2-2. Astros swept. Yankees, they got off to a historic start. They faltered midseason, finished strong, but they got swept in the ALCS. When you look at this season, if you're the Yankees and you're a Yankee fan, is this season a disappointment?
Yeah, I would say it would be a disappointment. There's not a lot of teams that say that with 99 wins, but this is a team that, the years creep up on you. The Orioles is going to be, 40 years next year since they won a World Series or even have been in a World Series. That doesn't happen overnight. The Yankees are suddenly, and that's why I was so surprised that Boone got the vote of confidence right away, and I guess if he got a vote of confidence, there's no talk about, attempting to move on from Brian Cashman. So I would say it's a disappointment, and I would frankly, those two guys, Boone and Cashman, are kind of the last guys I'd want running my ship right now, in New York. Given how long it's been and what they do, they sort of have an MO that I don't know if it's capable of winning a championship.
Yeah, I don't know either, and it's been now 13 seasons since the team was in the World Series. You look at the previous 14 seasons, they were there 6 times, and they won, 4 or 5 of them?
Mm-hmm.
With Boone, like you said, he got that vote of confidence pretty quickly. How much longer is his leash if he can't get them to the World Series?
Well, I think Boone will get next year, and then Hal is remember the thing with Hal Steinbrenner. He doesn't want to be his father, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
So then when you say how much longer does he have, he wants to portray himself. He wants to portray himself as something different and better, which is something we're seeing in Baltimore, with John Angelos.
Yeah. If Boone is going to do it next year, he may have to do it without his biggest star, Aaron Judge. Hit .311 this year, led the majors in home runs, RBIs, OPS. Yet he gets to the postseason, hit .135 this postseason. In his career, he has a .211, .310, .462, .772 slash line. What is Aaron Judge's legacy ultimately when you look at how great his regular seasons have been and then how poor his postseasons have been?
That's a hard question to ask. I mean, he's a great Yankee. He's an all-time type of Yankee. The biggest problem, the Yankees, I feel if Aaron Judge hadn't had the injury history that he's got,
right,
I don't see any question that the Yankees would have signed him by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he turned down a lot of money.
They look at he turned down a lot of money, but he's in that range of Machado and Harper, except for the fact that he misses a lot. He misses a lot of time. Now, he didn't miss any time this year. I think he played an awful lot of the games in 21. But he's a guy that if you have a $38 million for 8, 9, 10 years, and all of a sudden he comes up with that back problem, it's a tough thing to play around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
I'm not saying they want to move on from him, but I think they understand that he's going to be their primary guy that they're trying to sign. They're going to dangle that Yankee captaincy in front of him, which is something that so few people have had. But they're into the free agent market. I mean, if the Dodgers decide they want to play in that market, or the Mets decide they want to play in that market, it's quite possible they could lose them.
Yeah,
but I listened to Costas's reason when he was doing the postgame show. All things considered, it's hard to imagine the Yankees letting him walk away.
It is. San Francisco is reportedly going to make a hard push for him. He is from that area. They're looking to make him the centerpiece of their next competitive team. But Sandy's 30 years old. You mentioned the injury history. I cannot imagine any team, even the Yankees, giving him more than 6 years on a contract. To me, that would just be madness.
I don't think he'll get 10, and clearly he won't get 13. But I could see a team, if the Giants are in it, and the Yankees are offering 6, and they're solid on 6, I could see the team that's trying to take him away, sort of going through the analytics of negotiating and saying, you know what, if we sign him for 8 years and he's really good for 5 of those years, we've won. So it wouldn't shock me if the Giants and Dodgers go after him if one of them didn't give him 7 or even as much as 8 years.
Yeah,
it wouldn't shock me.
And a lot of times, Stan, with those contracts, and I think you can agree with this, that you're paying for the first half of the contract, and you're willing to make do with the second half if the player is elite the first half of that contract. That may be the case with a guy like Aaron Judge. The body was breaking down in his mid to late 20s. I can't imagine it staying solid for the next 8 years. We will certainly see as
well,
we don't
know. Yeah.
Now some Orioles news. Brandon Hyde, he wins the Sporting News AL Manager of the Year. Buck Showalter wins in the NL for the 4th time in his career. It's not the real award, but it's noteworthy nonetheless. Brandon Hyde, more than deserving, right? The team improved by more than 30 wins from 2021 to 2022.
And Brandon did a fantastic job. I still think when the big award, the Manager of the Year award, comes out, it's probably going to be Scott Service. Mm-hmm. But it's great that he's got one of those honors, and Brandon did a terrific job.
And it's a good award to win because that's voted on by AL managers and coaches. So the fact that it shows what these other teams, what the guys at the helm of these other teams think of Brandon Hyde. So it's a good win for him. Now you move to some other hardware. Ramon Arias, despite only playing 86 games at third base, he's a finalist for the Gold Glove there. Cedric Mullins, a finalist for the Gold Glove in center field. Yet Jorge Mateo, who wins the Fielding a Bible Award as the best defensive shortstop in the game, the best defensive metrics in either league at the position, left off as a finalist for the Gold Glove. Ramon Arias and Mullins,
who are the finalists for that position? It is hard to believe.
It is Jeremy Pena, Xander Bogaerts, and Carlos Correa.
Yeah, well, they've lost some credibility in my mind.
Yeah, it's more of a popularity contest when you look at the names there. But if Mateo it
can't be that much it can't be a total popularity contest if Pena's there.
Well, he is on the Astros. I think that's.
Something. The more I think about it, I watched Pena this year because of fantasy. Mm-hmm. I would watch games where I had a pitcher that he's not. He may get good defensively. He had like 19 or 20 errors.
Yeah, but he's a rookie. He plays for the 106-win Astros, and he replaced Carlos Correa there. And so the spotlight was on him, and he had a solid offensively. He had a solid season. If you look at all those guys who were finalists, they were really good offensively. Jorge Mateo was not good offensively. You're talking 221 with a 267 on base percentage. I feel like if his on base percentage is his batting average and his on base percentage is close to around 320, maybe he is a finalist. And to me, it just shows like it kind of makes a mockery of the whole thing because it's supposed to be based on your defensive metrics.
I believe Mike Elias also said when they drafted Jeremy Pena in the 3rd round of the 2018 draft, Mike Elias said at the time was scouting director that they thought they drafted one of the best defensive shortstops in that draft. So it's interesting to see that his bat has kind of taken, I guess, a little bit of the light away from his defense because it seems like his bat's taking a step forward.
The luster,
Yeah.
That's not distressing is too harsh a word. That's a little surprising to me that they would have a reputation of something that's important, an award like that or a recognition like that, and they seem to have gotten it very wrong this year.
Yeah,
there's no way Mateo isn't better than Pena at this point in time defensively, and Bogaerts. There's no way he's not better.
Yeah, if he was more of a household name,
good,
if he was more of a household name or a better offensive player, I think he would have been a finalist. And honestly, it's not fair because he was the best defensive shortstop in the game. But life isn't fair, so we move on. MLB trade rumors. They did their Orioles offseason outlook the week before this past one. So last week, the They were talking about how the Orioles might not want to sign one of those big name shortstops. We're talking Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa, Tim Anderson, Trey Turner. Because of the names that they have in place, Joey Ortiz, Kobe Mayo, Jackson Holliday, and Jordan Westberg were names that they mentioned, and that's before they even mentioned Connor Norby. Do you think that that's the right way to go, Stan? I don't think that the mindset should be, well, we have all these prospects, so we don't need a proven, established big leaguer.
I just don't see that as being. I think with Mateo and Henderson on your roster next year, and both very affordable when you're talking about trying to up payroll and become even more competitive, I don't see any way, shape, or form they're in the hunt for a Dansby Swanson, a Bogaerts, or Correa. It just doesn't make any sense. There's other areas of greater need than having a big-time shortstop that commands big-time money.
Now, Stan, I talked with Luke Jackson about this a few weeks ago, and he said, look, if you're playing in the AL Central, yeah, you can have Jorge Mateo play shortstop for you every day and bat him ninth. But in the American League East, you can't have that offensive profile in your lineup and compete day in and day out. So that his offensive, his lackluster offensive numbers, that doesn't shy you away from having him be your starting shortstop in 2023.
We're talking about Mateo now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not for. I could see a scenario where they end up giving the job to Henderson, but I think Mateo is on this team unless we're talking about a trade scenario where some team, with the idea I have with this deal that I could see taking place with the Marlins, if the Marlins hold him in high esteem and you could get Jesus Luzardo or Lopez from the Marlins for Mullins and him, that's starts to be a really interesting proposition to make.
Yeah, and you were talking to me about this last night and again this morning about the Marlins are certainly in the market for a center fielder, willing to trade from their stockpiling of pitching. So you think that Mullins could be a likely guy to go if it's going to bring back somebody like a Luzardo or even a Pablo Lopez?
Yeah, I think the Orioles will explore that. That doesn't mean they don't. That doesn't mean that they won't have Mullins back in any way, shape, or form. But I really find it hard to believe that they would come back with that same outfield. You've got to figure out. You've got to figure out how you get better offensively on this. By 2023. The team on base percentage is .305. There's a lot of dead wood in that lineup. And I agree Mateo is, but I don't think the answer with as many holes as this team still has, I don't think they can be dazzled by their 83-win season this year. They need to be smart and not be arrogant that, hey, we've got all the answers right here. Buck Showalter always liked to say, you're always looking around for somebody else's treasure when you might have treasure right here. I think we have a pretty good idea what Hayes, Santander, and Mullins are now as players, and I don't see any way, shape, or form you bring all three of them back.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and Luke Jackson says he thinks that all three of them could be gone by some point next season. Now, Stan, it's an interesting thought that maybe you could trade Cedric Mullins, who had a really good year this year, but really down from a 30-30 year the year before, was really bad against left-handed pitching, especially the second half of the season. If he gets traded, there's an interesting name that's a free agent after this season, and that's Brandon Nimmo. And that's a guy who bats from the left side. He plays center field. He doesn't steal a ton of bases, but he got the speed. He has 7 triples this year. Hits for decent power, a lot of doubles, and he gets on base. As a left-handed batter, he hits about .270 against both left-handed and right-handed pitching. Is that a guy you could really see the Orioles making a push for, especially if they trade a guy like Cedric Mullins?
I think he's going to be out of their price range. I think Nimmo's going to be one of these guys. Yeah. I think Nimmo's going to be one of these guys that you're shocked that you're going to see get like an $80 million contract.
Yeah, and I guess I feel like he's young enough that $80 million contract could be, or that he could get maybe 5 or 6 years at $15 to $20 million. And you think that's out of the Orioles' price range, considering how low their payroll is and the flexibility that they have now?
Well, with the other things that they need to accomplish, yeah, I do.
Okay, fair enough. Stan, we're kind of up against it, so we're gonna get going here. What do you have coming up this week for us?
Don't have our guest Monday night. We're trying. Ross is trying to hook up with a longtime executive. He's also been a minor league manager, Shane Turner of the San Francisco Giants, to talk a little bit about this World Series, and also talk a little bit about his what his take is on Bruce Bochy coming back. You know, because he worked with Bochy for a long time there in San Francisco.
Okay. Well, we will certainly look forward.
He's an executive with the Giants, you know, so we're looking at doing that. And then Wednesday night, not Thursday, we've got Sarah Ellison to break down the rest of the Ravens season. And what looks suddenly, after an impressive second half win, and you start to hear that they don't play another winning team until the last game of the season. Mm-hmm. That's pretty remarkable right now.
One game in the next 23 days gives them an opportunity to get really healthy and make a nice push here. They've won 2 straight. They've been able to hold on to these leads in the fourth quarter. Could be a fun second half of the season for the Ravens.
Could be.
All right, Stan, we'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
Right, see ya. And that was Stan the Fan, Charles, who has 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Ross were joined by the legendary Mike Boddicker. Plus, Stan and Gary caught up with Concordia Prep football coach Joe Battaglia. Find these shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stay tuned as Stan and Ross are back on Monday with another great show. Today's show has been brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Flying by the seat of my pants here. We're going to catch our first break here. When we come back, Zach is going to sound off. I'll talk a little bit more about the World Series, and then we will get to, at some point, the payoff pitch around the league and baseball banter. That and more next on the Bat Around.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
What's up, everyone? This is Tyus Bowser, and I'm excited to tell you that I'm back for Season 2 of the Tyus Bowser Show in partnership with PressBox and Great H Memorabilia. Join us on Tuesday nights throughout the season as I'll be heading all over town with my special guests. And, of course, our co-hosts, Glenn and Rita. Or is it Rita and Glenn? What is it? I look forward to meeting you guys and talking a little bit about football and a lot about life. And if you happen to miss the show, you can now catch a replay Friday nights on 105.7 The Fan. Get all of your details for the Tyus Bowser Show right now at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser.
The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 1st at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill, 5506 Hartford Road. It's brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Welcome back to the Bat Around, coming to you from our Towson Studios on a beautiful Saturday morning here in October, Halloween weekend. So please be safe out there and check your kids' candy, because there's a lot of creeps out there. You just heard Glenn talking about it on the commercials. If you actually sat through the commercials, I just want to remind you that coming soon, the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill is the perfect ceramic tailgate or home grill to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all kinds of food. Get the details and reserve yours today at ginsugrills.com and use the code TAILGATE to get $100 off your order. Come get a sample of the cooking from the Ginsu Kamado Grill before every Ravens home game this season at the Game Day Firehouse, located at the Firefighters Union Hall, just west of the stadium at 1202 Ridgely Street. You can stop by, try some food, and enter to win a Ginsu Kamado ceramic grill and $500 worth of grilling meats. We're back here on the Bat Around. It is now time for Sounding Off with Zach Goodman. Just want to remind you, Sounding Off with Zach Goodman today is brought to you by online sports betting that will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks. PressBox is your source for the best offers and sign-up incentives. Starting now, you can get a $100 pre-registration credit from our friends at FanDuel by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. The $100 credit is in addition to the new user promo you will get when they go live. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now to get your $100 FanDuel pre-registration bonus credit. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Zach, what do you got for us today?
Yeah, I think you and Stan already covered it a little bit, but the
not
fact
to
that
thunder.
No, of course not. But the fact that Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman are both returning to the team once again, the team meaning the New York Yankees. To me, as someone who covers the Orioles and as someone who, we're all Orioles fans here, that's a very exciting thing because the Orioles are a team that needs to compete in this AL East and they need to figure out how to win. And this is obviously a very, very tough division. You've got the Blue Jays who are, for the foreseeable future, I think going to be very good. Mm-hmm. The Red Sox, they were bad this year. They have a ton of money. They're always going to be good. The Rays, always good, it seems like. And the Yankees, of course, have been in the playoffs for just about every year I can remember of my lifetime. So this, to me, though, is a good thing because the Yankees, year in, year out, lose in the playoffs. This is something that's happened basically every time they've been in the playoffs for them. Since 2009, they won their last World Series, but they haven't been to the World Series since 2009. And, Joe Girardi, we talked about him a little bit before. I thought Joe Girardi, he, like you said, he fit into the Yankees culture pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I have never felt that Aaron Boone fits the Yankees culture in the same way. I thought they hired Aaron Boone in the beginning because of his playoff heroics in the early 2000s that made him kind of a Yankees icon in a way, which is weird to say because I really don't think of Aaron Boone among the Yankees icons of, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth.
I couldn't tell you who, was it the Padres that he played for before the
I believe it was the Padres, yeah.
I'm not sure.
And his brother played too, Brett Boone.
Brett Boone was really good, but
better player.
I think he was a steroid
He
guy.
definitely was on steroids, yeah.
For
But
the
he hit like 50 home runs for the Mariners that one year in the middle of the 90s. But Boone has always kind of been around because of these, one his brother, but also because of what he did in those playoffs and how heroic he was for the New York Yankees. And Bob Boone, of course, too. Aaron Boone, I didn't like the hire when it happened. And Aaron Boone has led them nowhere. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go off on Cashman in a second here, but Boone has taken a team that has the MVP this year, Giancarlo Stanton, Garrett Cole, Gleyber Torres. I could keep naming guys. Higashioka is one of the best defenders in baseball. This is a talented team year in and year out, incredibly talented. They spend the most money. They're up there every year with the most talented teams, and they never go anywhere. I think there needs to be a culture change, and I think you can tell in the fact that Aaron Judge probably doesn't want to return to the Yankees. It's been made it pretty clear that Aaron Judge wants to leave, and I think by all means he's going to do that. So I don't like the culture that Boone has cultivated in New York, and I don't think it's been the right fit for a few years now. And I've been calling on Aaron Boone to be moved on from for the past few years, but I also think a lot of this is on Cashman too, because Cashman is a guy who's been around on the Yankees for over 20 years. He's been their GM for a very, very long time. I think he is the longest-standing GM in baseball at this moment. And GM is one of those jobs where I feel you're hired to be fired. Right?
Well, every job in baseball, every job in sports, you're hired to be fired.
You're going to be fired eventually. And Brian Cashman just hasn't. He's been around he's had over 2,000 wins. The guy's been around forever. And yeah, his Yankees teams, they won a World Series in 2009. And he's had some great Yankees teams, but in this last decade, they've done absolutely nothing. A decade plus, really, 13 years. They've done absolutely nothing, and he continues to pour money into guys like Giancarlo Stanton. And Giancarlo Stanton's a good player, but he's paying Giancarlo Stanton way more than Giancarlo Stanton's been worth. He spent more time at the trainer's table than he has on the field. Garrett Cole is being paid a lot more than really what he's worth, I think, at this point. So, and that continues to be a trend for Brian Cashman. The Yankees front office, if you look at the amount of time that the guys at the top have spent compared to a lot of the other teams like the Houston Astros or really any of the other playoff teams, it's a big margin. They've been there a long time, and they haven't seen success. The Yankees are not in a great spot moving forward for me. They're just not.
I don't think they are either. They have a lot of big contracts, and I don't think it's a good idea for them to pay Judge. Because you mentioned Giancarlo Stanton, he's not going anywhere for a while, right? Garrett Cole, you just signed him a couple of years ago. Yeah. He's making $36 million a year. You're going to pay Judge $40 million a year with those other contracts?
Right.
A guy who in his 20s, his body was breaking down, and now in his 30s, your body doesn't get better, right? Like trust me, I'm 38. Everything hurts, right?
Yeah,
and I play baseball once a week.
Right.
His body isn't going to hold up for the length of that contract, and then you're going to be stuck paying this guy $40 million a year while you're paying Stanton $30 million a year, while you're paying Cole $36 million a year. It just, as good as Judge is and as much as he is the Yankees, how do you explain that, especially if you never get back to the World Series?
And my point here is, too, that the Yankees consistently get themselves into these really rich contracts for little reason. I mean, look at Aaron Hicks. I didn't even talk about Aaron Hicks, but Aaron Hicks is making over $70 million, and he's not good at all.
Yeah,
and again,
Jacoby Ellsbury,
another great example of a Brian Cashman investment that he barely played for the Yankees. Jacoby Ellsbury played I don't even know if he played a full season if you combine all the games.
I'm sure he did, but he turned
it wasn't a lot.
One elite season in Boston. He was a good player in Boston. He had that 30 homer season. He turned one elite season in Boston into a huge payday from the Yankees. That was maybe the worst contract in the history of that franchise.
Right.
It was awful.
And this seems like something they've done a lot. They've sunk their money into these rich contracts, and they don't really get a lot of depth. You saw when the Yankees, I mean, they played incredible through the first half of the season. They were incredible, and that's because of the talent they had. I mean, they're a very talented team. There's no doubt about that. And Brian Cashman has put talented teams on the field, but you saw the lack of depth once those more relevant players started going down, and they guys like Oswaldo Peraza had to come up and take really relevant players' spots, and they just weren't.
We didn't even mention DJ LeMahieu.
DJ LeMahieu went down, right?
And he's making $25 million a year for them until his age 37 season.
Right. Everyone's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Everyone. To me, they need to invest their money a little bit smarter, and they need to make sure they have depth across the board because I just don't feel like they have it.
And I know they're the Yankees. So they're never going to do it. But would it be a better move for them to maybe trade some of these contracts to pick up some prospects so that instead of having to pay, instead of being the Yankees having to pay 6 different guys $40 million each, maybe you actually develop some of your own talent in your farm system.
It's a great point.
But which, I mean, I think they have some really solid players in their farm system. I'm not privy to their names at the moment.
It's okay.
But like, if you want good, where did the Yankees falter this year? They didn't have any way to back up when their guys. Now, most teams don't, right? If DJ LeMahieu gets hurt, most teams don't have a guy that can replace him and put up the same production. But you've got Rizzo, you've got Judge, you've got Giancarlo Stanton. Those guys don't Rizzo, I think, stays healthy for the most part.
Yeah.
But 3 guys in Stanton, Judge, and LeMahieu have an injury history. You're paying them a ton of money. Luis Severino was in your rotation to barely pitch in the last few years. And Zach Britton's been hurt, and you gave him a lot of money to be a solid back-end reliever for you. Aroldis Chapman's getting a lot of money to get hurt and then be ineffective, and he's just a scumbag human being.
And wouldn't even show up to Yankees. I don't know exactly what it was. It was like a team meeting or something, and he didn't show up, and that's why he didn't pitch in the playoffs at all.
It's maybe they'd be better suited to stop spending so much money. Right. Spend money when they need to and where they need to supplement, but maybe trade some of these contracts to get some talent infused back in your system. But hey, keep running your show. Keep the way that you're doing it. Keep winning meaningless division titles just to lose in the first round of the playoffs every year. I'm good with that too. Although I want the Orioles to win some division titles, and I think that they will in the future. So look, anytime we talk about the Yankees being bad and how they can get better, but know that they're not going to do it, I'm here for it. So good segment. Now, payoff pitch around the league World Series edition. In what we expected to be a pitching duel last night, Aaron Nola and Justin Verlander each gave up 5 runs on 6 hits. Nola giving up the 2 home runs to Kyle Tucker, but the Phillies come storming back with a 3-run fourth, a 2-run fifth, highlighted by the 2-run double by JT Realmuto. Nick Castellanos makes a catch of his life to save the game in the bottom of the 9th, so that JT Realmuto can play hero again with the game-winning home run in the top of the 10th, as the Phillies go on to beat the Astros in Game 1 of the World Series 6-5. Zach, what's on tap for World Series Game 2 tonight?
Yeah, I mean, these 2 guys that are going tonight are 2 of the best pitchers on their respective teams. I think Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher on the Philadelphia Phillies. He's got a 1.78 ERA for the Phillies right now in the postseason. Framber Valdez, who's going for the Astros tonight, has a 1.42 ERA in the postseason. These guys have been lighting it up. I mean, Zach Wheeler already has 25 strikeouts in just the 2 starts. He's been really good. So the Phillies, they are going to be
25 strikeouts in 2 starts?
Oh, it might be a bit more than 2 starts. I could be wrong on that.
I think it's 3 starts.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is 3. But the Phillies will play the Astros tonight, 8:03 in Houston for Game 2. Like you said, the Phillies have that 1-0 lead, but that pitching matchup is really, I think, the story here, and it probably won't go the way it did last night. It's probably going to be better.
I'd imagine this to be. I mean, it's last night was a tight game,
right? I mean, the pitching up front, yeah.
But I'd expect it to be a little bit lower scoring of a game tonight for sure. Look, the Phillies, they're playing with house money, man. Yeah. They're up 1-0 in the World Series. They really, the way they started this year, the way they finished, they kind of backed in. They really kind of shouldn't be there, and yet here they are, 3 wins from the World Series. They win the first game in Houston. If they find a way to win this game tonight, I think the series is over. I think they have so much momentum, and then they go home and they play 3 games in Philadelphia.
Right.
You can't convince me that they can't find a way to win 2 of those 3 games in Philly. With that crowd, how amped up they are. This is a city that since 1980 has 4 professional championships.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
They've won 2 World Series. They've won 1 Super Bowl, 1 NBA championship. This is a team that's starved for championships, a city that's starved for championships. And how raucous that crowd's going to be, knowing how fans are in Philadelphia about their sports teams, it's going to be madness. If they go home with a 2-0 lead, that series is over.
I really have a feeling the Astros tie this one tonight.
Yeah.
Something tells me they're not going to go down. Because, I mean, look, the Astros came out yesterday, and it looked like that game was going to go their way. And then, to me, I look at the Astros and I say, Framber Valdez is going tonight. Even though Zach Wheeler is opposing them, I have a feeling the Astros are taking home a win. But it's probably going to be another close game because I think you're going to get better starting pitching than we did last night. I think you're going to get both these guys throwing 5 or 6 innings of shutout ball. I would really expect that.
And look, that Astros bullpen is really good. And then you look at their lineup, and Jose Altuve, the bats, he started 0 for 25. He's just 4 for 27.
Yeah.
In this 4 for 37 in this postseason, but he's 4 for his last 12.
Yeah.
And I expect him to have a big game tonight. Yordan Alvarez has been silent as a mouse over these past 2 series after being the hero of the ALDS. I look at those guys to kind of get off the schneid here a little bit and start carrying this ball club. And don't be surprised if Alex Bregman hits a big home run tonight.
Yeah.
This is a team with that playoff pedigree. They've been there. They know what it takes to get it done.
Yeah.
They've been to now their 4th World Series, but they've only won 1 of them.
Right.
Dusty Baker's never won a World Series, and you think that they want to go to Philly down 2-0 and not have a chance for Dusty Baker to win as one of the greatest managers of all time? I think he's got close to 2,000 wins, right? He's got over 2,000 wins now, if I'm correct, and has never won a World Series. This is a team, they've got resilience, and I expect them to come back and win this game tonight. But if they don't, I'm telling you, series is over.
Well, like you mentioned with the Astros, you made a great point that they're one of those teams that just kind of shows up and wins. And maybe you forget about it because they've been so consistent over, the past, since really 2017 on, they've been so consistently good. But I think one of the things that might be glossed over is the fact that this team, like you said, also has that playoff pedigree. These guys have done it before. Most of the guys on this team have done it before. I mean, Kyle Tucker being, one of the exemptions here. But, man, this team, they know how to win baseball games. They know. So and they've all been there before. This, to me, that's a really big factor in this. And if they win this game tonight, this series could go a really different way. I think if the Astros come out and do it tonight, I think the series could be theirs. I don't want to make my prediction quite yet. I'll probably make it after tonight, see what happens. But I think the Astros are in a really good spot if they end up winning this one tonight because, again, Jose Altuve, guys like that, Alex Bregman, they're going to break out and show up for their team.
Yeah.
I'm really confident in that.
If the Astros win tonight, there's a good chance the series goes 7 games.
That could happen.
There's a good chance because then you go to Philly for 3 games. I can see the Phillies winning 2 of those games. And then you got to come back to Houston. If Houston wins tonight and then they win game 1 or game 3 in Philly, it might be Houston's series to lose.
Right.
At that point. But it's going to be very interesting. The Phillies have so much momentum and they have the ferocity of an entire city on their shoulders. I just think that they have so much momentum that they could pull this out. But it's the Astros.
Do you think that the Astros coming into the series without losing a game is a bad thing for them? Like they've already wasted all of their playoff magic at this point?
No.
Okay.
No, they're too steady.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
6 straight ALCSs, 4 World Series in 6 years. I don't think this team gets too up, and I don't think this team gets too down. I think they go to work. Like I said earlier, they put their head down and they go to work day in and day out. They post up, so they don't look at this. They look at this adversity and they're just like, all right, been here before. Let's go out and get it. I don't think that. I think some teams, like you look at the Baltimore Ravens in 2019, they go 14-2. They win 12 straight. They get that first round bye, rested a lot of the starters in the last game of the season, and still managed to win. And then they lose in the playoffs because they didn't know what it felt like to lose at that point, and they weren't ready for it when somebody came and punched them in the mouth. The Astros aren't that team. They've been there. Yeah. They've been here too long. Moving on to the Orioles, it's hard to believe that we're almost a full 4 weeks clear of the end of the Orioles season. 83-79, hugely successful 2022 season that nobody saw coming. Lift off from here. We've mentioned it dozens of times on this show. When the World Series ends, you got about a week and then free agency starts.
Yep.
Right? And we're not that far. Look, October's basically over. You're going to have the GM meetings here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then you have the winter meetings in about 5-6 weeks. All right? It's liftoff.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here? The Orioles, their main needs in no particular order. They need a backup catcher. They probably need another infielder. They need a big bat for the middle of their order. They need a starter or two, and like a legitimate starter, not somebody that you just bring in who could pitch to a 4.75 ERA. They need a legitimate frontline starter, and they need some bullpen help. So I've put together my wish list by every position, and it doesn't mean that I think they need help at every position.
Just a possibility.
Possibilities here for them to sign. We're going to start out with catcher, and I pinpointed Tucker Barnhart. He's a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner. Not the greatest pitch framer in the world these days. He's probably, to this point in his career, he's a starting catcher, but I think the offense has gotten worse and worse by the year, and I look at him and I say, that's a guy who's got some pop, who's a good defensive catcher. Again, not the greatest pitch framer, but if he's only going to catch 50 games this year, if that, he's not going to catch 50 games. He might catch 20, 30 games this year. He may not be willing to sign on for that, but if the Orioles can get a guy like him to be their backup catcher, and I think he's kind of gotten to the point in his career where that's what he has to look for. Yeah. Tucker Barnhart would be a great choice in my opinion.
I think that's an excellent fit. That's not someone I'd really considered, but you look at the numbers this year, and they're not great, but certainly in 2021 he was a lot better. Hit 241, 317 on base. That's a guy that you can easily stomach as a backup catcher. That's what you expect out of a backup catcher. You're not going to expect, a 350 on base percentage or something crazy. So these guys are going to be, bad hitters, average defenders. That's probably what he's going to be. So that's a great fit. I like it.
Now, the Orioles did acquire Colesberry and Aramis Garcia from the Reds. And Aramis Garcia was one of the better pitch framers in baseball this year. Is that a guy who you could see getting a first crack at the backup job along with Anthony Benboom?
Yeah, if they don't sign anyone, if there's no free agent brought in, or even if there is, it could be a low-profile one, like a minor league guy. There's going to be a lot of competition, I think. Ben Boom is certainly someone who will get a good look because he is a really good defender. And both the guys they claimed off waivers from Cincinnati are going to get a good look. And there'll probably be more guys brought in.
Cam Gallagher.
Cam Gallagher is another guy who will get a look. Sure, there's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a pretty open position. Unless a guy like Tucker Barnhart's brought in, I think you've got a pretty clear idea he's going to be the backup catcher to Rutschman. But there will be a competition if not.
Yeah, now you move to first base, and everybody's talking about how the Orioles need another guy on the roster that can play first base. They picked up Jesus Aguilar at the waiver deadline on August 31st. Didn't provide much for them. He had 1 double, 1 home run, 2 RBIs for them in, 17 games, something like that.
He was bad.
But he was better than he had been previously. He hit 224 with the Orioles. He had 6 hits in his last 17 at-bats to end the season. I don't know that they bring him back unless it's on a minor league contract and invite to spring training. I think if the Orioles bring in another guy that can play first base, it's going to be that middle-of-the-order bat.
Right.
I think it's going to be a guy that you're going to DH, but also let him spell Mountcastle at first base. And so I look at Jose Abreu or Josh Bell. Jose Abreu, I think, is a better offensive player. Maybe the power sapped a little bit, especially with that wall in left field now, but he's still going to hit for high average. He's going to drive in runs. He can play first base. He's one of 7 guys that played 1,000 innings along with Ryan Mountcastle at first base this year defensively. That's a big bat that I could see being in the middle of the order. But Josh Bell's 30 years old. He's a switch hitter, which means he's going to be batting primarily from the left side against all the righties that they face, which fits the Orioles' MO and what they're trying to do with this ball club to a T. Hits for power, hits for average. He doesn't strike out a ton, gets on base. Josh Bell might be the perfect fit for this team. Again, I don't think they're bringing in another guy that can play first base unless it's a middle-of-the-order bat to DH and spell Mountcastle.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, my gut tells me Josh Bell will not end up in Baltimore. I don't know what it is, but I actually would say Abreu is probably more likely. I think Abreu might be the better fit for me. I don't know. Abreu is definitely going to have a lot of offers. He's going to be a guy who's going to be one of the top free agents in this class, and I think the White Sox will have a great chance of bringing him back too. I've said all along that Abreu really is the perfect fit for me. I think he's actually a better fit than Josh Bell because I think he's simply a better player. That's my opinion. I think he's a better player.
I watched Josh Bell in the spotlight in the playoffs, and he did not impress me.
Yeah, Josh Bell has always had a bit of a weird swing. He's not a great defender over at first. I don't know how much they care about that if Mountcastle's playing most days there. But, I feel like Abreu's the better fit. I feel like he's the better player, and he's a guy who has that pedigree. I mean, he's been around for a long time now. He's 35 years old. So I really do like Abreu, and I think the fit's good.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit, too. It's just a matter of if he, in the twilight of his career, he's 36 years old now. Mm-hmm. If he wants to sign in a place where the power's sapped already, it's going to completely sap his power unless he starts going oppo for a lot of home runs.
Right.
Second base, there's nobody really worth signing on the free agent market. I think that the Orioles are going to stay in-house
Ramon
for
Arias.
second. Probably Ramon Arias to start, and then I could see Jordan Westberg or Connor Norby taking over
or
at
even
some
Ortiz.
point. Or even Ortiz. But I think if Ortiz is up, they want him playing shortstop. And I could see him starting at shortstop over Jorge Mateo. At some point in this season, which takes us to shortstop. Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson. In that order is my wish list for shortstop. I think Trey Turner might be the best free agent not named Aaron Judge on the position player market. Rumors are that he wants to come back east, but he did say he's willing to look at all teams now. Come back east, I don't know that means the Orioles. He may be too pricey, but I think he'd be the perfect player for this team.
Yeah, Trey Turner, I look at the Mets, and I see a great fit there. I said that last week as well. I think Trey Turner is going to go to a really high-profile team. I do not see him coming to Baltimore. I feel like out of the three of those guys, Carlos Correa obviously has the Mike Elias connection. We've heard so much about Carlos Correa over the past 2 years about him coming to Baltimore. It's been a pretty big topic. But Dansby Swanson's the guy I look at, and I keep thinking that's a great fit too. Dansby Swanson, kind of a under-the-radar guy who, I don't know why, because he plays for the reigning World Series champs, but he's a guy who's consistently been really good over his career. He's an above-average defender, a lot of pop. Really,
and he's coming into his own now.
Yeah, and could be a three-hitter for this team. Absolutely. If you look at it, he's a 5-WAR player this year. This guy's an all-around really good player, and I think he's a better investment out of the three of those guys because he's going to cost a little bit less.
But I think I may agree with Stan here that I don't know that they target shortstop because I do think that they like what they have in the house. And do not be surprised to see Joey Ortiz get a shot.
I don't think he's the guy.
In spring training.
He'll get the shot, but I just don't think he's going to hit.
After he was a full year removed from that injury, they couldn't get him out at AA or AAA, and the defense has been Major League ready for over a year now. I think he would be a better offensive player than Jorge Mateo and give you similar defense.
He's going to hit for less power than Mateo, but he may have a better on-base percentage.
I think he'll hit for higher average and better on-base percentage, and I think he's got sneaky power. I think he's got sneaky power.
It's going to be a tough time for a right-handed hitter.
It's going to be a bad time.
I'm not big on Ortiz. I don't really believe in the bat. I've seen Ortiz a lot throughout the minors. When I worked at Aberdeen and everything, I saw him a ton there, and I never really liked the bat. You're right that he's taken a bit of a step forward and he's gotten better. I don't see the power playing at Camden Yards, especially with the way that the fact that he's a right-handed hitter.
Yeah, I just, depending on who you have in the rest of your lineup, you might not need his power. And if you're going to bat him ninth and play him at shortstop, I think he's a better offensive option than Jorge Mateo. And if they're not going to pick up a legitimate shortstop on the free agent market or trade for one, then you can do a whole hell of a lot worse than Joey Ortiz, giving you good defense and a better bat than Mateo. Mateo has either a guy that you trade and another team hopes they can make him a better offensive player, so he's got that written all over him, or super utility. He's got super utility written all over his face. Third base, I don't have anybody that I think is worth signing. No. Left field, Andrew Benintendi is like a sneaky guy that could be a nice role player for the Orioles. Plays good defense, gets on base. He'll hit for some power with that short porch in right field. I think that he's a huge upgrade, in my opinion, over Austin Hayes. I think that's a good fit. Center field, we talked about it, especially if Mullins gets traded. I think Brendan Nimmo is the perfect guy to go after here. And Stan may be right. He may get a lot of money, but I don't know that he's going to get more than $15 to $18 million on the open market per seat for the average annual value. And I look at that for Brandon Nimmo, and I think that that's worth it. The defense he's going to play, the batting average, the on-base percentage, the extra base capabilities that he has, and he doesn't steal a lot of bases, but he's got decent speed. Yeah. Brandon Nimmo, especially if they trade Cedric Mullins, I think is a great fit here. In right field, obviously Aaron Judge or Mitch Haniger. I didn't realize how good of a hitter Mitch Haniger actually is.
Yeah.
I always thought that he was kind of like a big time. I kind of put him in the same light as what's the guy's name? His brother plays in Texas. Seager, Kyle Seager.
Oh, okay.
I look at him. I kind of thought of him as Kyle Seager, 230 to 245 hitter that's going to hit 30 home runs.
Yeah.
But he's actually like more like a 275 hitter that's going to hit. That can hit 39 home runs in 2021. That's a guy who has a big bat. If he can stay healthy, that's a decent guy that you can bring in and have him play right field and DH for you a little bit. Aaron Judge is a pipe dream. I've been talking about him for
holding on to it, man,
for about 4 months. But let's be realistic here. I don't think he's re-signing with the Yankees. I think that when they look at it, that's just too much money. I think he ends up in San Francisco.
Agreed.
I really do. I think he ends up in San Francisco. DH, J.D. Martinez or Michael Brantley. Michael Brantley is an elite hitter, but he can't stay healthy.
Right.
If you can DH him and he can stay healthy, he can put the bat on the ball, be a solid number 2 hitter for you, and let you move Rutschman and Henderson in the more run-producing roles in the lineup. I really like Michael Brantley, but you got to keep him on the field.
Yeah.
J.D. Martinez, the power sapped, but I think he's still a productive major league hitter, and with the opposite field power, that wall doesn't really come into play for him. Maybe a change of scenery is what he needs, where he can kind of be the guy that you bat fourth, and even though he's not going to hit 40 home runs anymore, he can just kind of come in here and just be that guy for them. Your thoughts on J.D. Martinez and Michael Brantley?
Well, huge fan of both those guys.
Yeah.
They're two of my favorite players in baseball because their bat-to-ball skills, the way they put the bat on the ball is top tier, and they're going to put the ball in play a ton. They're going to get on base a lot. Big fan of both these guys, and I think both of them could bring the same veteran presence that Carlos Beltran brought that 2017 Astros team. I think that's really important to bring in someone with that pedigree. Who's, again, a guy who's been there before. They're both World Series champions. I really think that would be, either of them are great fits. J.D. Martinez is a better player at this point in his career. I think J.D. Martinez is better, and he's healthier.
And he's only a year removed from a 28-homer, 99 RBI season.
Yeah, right. I think Martinez is going to cost you more, too, though. Brantley fits really well. Brantley's another guy that I look at and I say, that's an Oriole.
He's that left-handed bat, and he sprays all over the field. And if you're going to sign a right-handed player, J.D. Martinez is probably the right guy because he has a left-handed hitter profile.
He does go up a lot.
He goes. The majority of his home runs are to right field, center field, and right field. So if you bring him in, you don't really have to worry about that wall. He's like the one right-handed guy that you bring in, and you're like, okay,
right,
we can move forward with this. I look at the starting pitching market. Look, the big names out there are Verlander if he opts out, Jacob DeGrom, Clayton Kershaw. Verlander and Kershaw aren't coming here. I think you look at Kershaw, it's either Texas or the Dodgers, and I think that really there's too much value in playing with one team your whole career. I think Kershaw finishes his career with the Dodgers, and Verlander, if he's not pitching for the Astros, I don't think he pitches anywhere else unless it's the Yankees. But so they're not really on my wish list. DeGrom's not on my wish list because as good as he is, he's made 26 starts the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust him to stay healthy. And I don't want to pay a guy $30 to $40 million a year to make 12 starts.
Do you buy the DeGrom report that came out last night? Do you buy that?
The Orioles are a sleeper for him?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I wouldn't even say you called him a sleeper. He said they're going to be a player, I guess is the word he used.
Who said this?
This was a Mets reporter. I don't know if there's a ton of... He's not one of the bigger guys. He's not like an athletic guy or something where you're going to really say straight up that I'd seen this guy break stories before. Mm-hmm. But here, let me pull it up. It is...
Raul Ramos.
Not Raul Ramos, no. It is Rob Pearsall, and he works for Mets Legends. He's a contributor to Sports Illustrated, Fan Nation. Kind
of like a Todd Karpovich.
Sure, we'll call him that. He is verified on Twitter, though.
Yeah, so it's Todd.
Yeah, right. So I'm just saying there is validity behind, I guess, something. He said a source told him that.
The Orioles are going to be in the.
He said I'm hearing the Baltimore Orioles could be one team in on Jacob DeGrom this winter. That was what he said.
Look, if they're going to go out and spend money on DeGrom, I don't.
Nobody's going to be upset. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but I'll be like, okay, DeGrom, that's legitimate.
Yeah,
but is he going to stay on the field, man? Is he going to stay on the field?
Yeah, I mean, the same question with Aaron Judge.
If you're going to pay him $30 to $40 million a year and he gives you 30 starts, hell yes. Mm-hmm. Sign me up for that in blood, okay? I don't trust that he's going to make more than 15 starts for you. I can't trust that.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. I look at Chris Bassett. I think that's a great option. Aaron Nola, despite his struggles recently in the postseason.
Yeah.
He's 29.
I think he's gonna be too costly though.
Yeah, he's gonna cost. I mean, if DeGrom's not too costly.
True.
Nathan Eovaldi is a guy who he's dominated the Orioles. He's a good pitcher. Had a down year. He was hurt this year. Nathan Eovaldi is a sneaky guy that I think could be a nice fit for the Orioles. Sean Manaea is another good option for them. And then Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard, to me, is a guy that if you bring him in and he gives you 25 to 30 starts as a number 4 or number 5, that's a solid pitcher that you can pick up and not have to spend $22 to $32 million a year on. Thoughts on Syndergaard, Bassett, on all those guys I just mentioned?
I really like the Bassett fit. I think that's an excellent fit. He's been, before he was with the Mets, he was with Oakland, which is somewhat similar of an environment to Baltimore, I guess you could say, in the way the market is there. So he's pitched for a team somewhat similar to the Orioles before, and he's been in the spotlight with the Mets now, but I think that's a really good fit. Noah Syndergaard, I think the Phillies are going to want him back. I think they're going to make a good push for him. Same with Aaron Nola. I think he fits in that category as well. I think the Phillies will end up retaining Aaron Nola.
I would imagine.
I'm pretty confident, especially the fact that he's with a World Series team at the moment. Eovaldi, Sean Manaea, both of those guys, they've had their moments. I would say I'm a bigger Eovaldi fan. I mean, guy throws like a 99 mile an hour fastball when he's on. He's got a pretty good curveball.
He can paint.
Yeah, he can paint. Sean Manaea, I wouldn't say I'm too interested, but I mean, again, he's a middle of the rotation starter if you do go out and get him. But I would say Chris Bassett to me out of all these guys is by far your most realistic and best option.
Sure. And then relief pitching, we got to do this quickly because we got to catch a break before we get Scott Lauber of the Philadelphia Inquirer on. Relief pitching, Rafael Montero, Adam Ottavino, David Robertson. The latter two, Ottavino and Robertson, down years for a couple of years, but then they were really good, really nice bounce-back seasons for them this year. And I think with this, in the right role with this pitching development and the pitching coach and staff that we have in Baltimore, I think those guys could be good veteran fits in a bullpen. Montero just really, really good this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think all these guys could be fits. I think they will be looking to make a relief upgrade, especially down the stretch. You started to see some of those guys, especially
some of the warts started to show.
Right. I mean, they started to also get overused. So I think they're definitely going to go after a guy. I've always loved Adam Ottavino. The arm, the arm slot there, the slider that he has is pretty devastating when it's on. I would say Ottavino out of the three guys would be the guy to go after because he is going to come a little cheaper based on the fact that he's had a few down years now.
Sure. Good segment, man. This is all going to start becoming more real, probably maybe starting with our next show. If not that show, certainly the show 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned for that here on the Bat Around. We have to catch a break. Today's show brought to you by the Guilford Hall Brewery. Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted micro brews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have a free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights, so go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. That's Guilford Hall Brewery at 1611 Guilford Avenue in Station North. Got to catch a break. When we come back from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Scott Lauber will be on next on the Bat Around.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also, inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area. And Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
All right, welcome back into the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma, which comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Joining us now from the Philadelphia Inquirer, he covers the Philadelphia Phillies. He is Scott Lauber. Scott, it's Paul, it's Zach. Good morning. Thanks for taking some time for us here on the Bat Around.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Phillies fan. My stepdad and my two co-best men from my wedding are all from Philly. So I have a rooting interest, and I'm a big Bryce Harper guy. Phillies, they win 6-5 in 10 innings in Game 1. Trailed 5-0 after 3 innings. Stormed back with 3 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th. The 2 coming on the JT Realmuto game-tying 2-run double, and then he hits the game-winning home run in the 10th. Not to mention Nick Castellanos' huge game-saving catch in the bottom of the 9th. How magical, including last night, has this postseason run been for the Philadelphia Phillies?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. I think there's kind of this World Series, for me at least, has a bit of a full circle feeling to it because the Phillies ended their season here in Houston. And, they played the last 3 games of the year here. They clinched in the third to last game. They clinched a playoff spot. And then, kind of got themselves a little bit of a rest the following day and then played the final game of the season. And I remember very clearly leaving for the airport after that series and not having any idea in my mind that I'd be coming back to Houston. It wasn't so much that I didn't think the Phillies would do anything in the postseason. It was that I just didn't imagine them being in the World Series. I mean, they were making the playoffs for the first time in 11 years, and the way they finished the season, if not for the expanded playoffs and the extra wild card, they're not even in the postseason tournament this year. But really, everything that's happened in October has turned up in their favor. right from game one in St. Louis when they came back with 6 runs in the ninth and won that game. And I think it's just kind of built on itself from there. So it's been pretty magical. It's been pretty unexpected. They're playing great, really in every aspect of the game. And they have now for 3.5, 4 weeks. I've thought all along, and I've said this to a lot of people and written this a lot in the Inquirer, that the Phillies are the type of team, and have been for a while, for several years now, where, the challenge is the 162 games, because they haven't had the deepest rosters. They haven't had the best farm system. They haven't had the infrastructure in place to survive a 162-game season and make the playoffs. But they have the kind of roster, and all of those things, I should say, are much improved this year, which is why they were able to do that and getting better. But they've been the kind of team for a few years where you look at their roster and you look at the top of their roster in particular with Harper and Realmuto and Hoskins and Nola and Wheeler. And these are star players that any team would take at the top of its roster. And you say to yourself, well, if they could only get in, they could do some damage because of the high-end starting pitching that they have and the fact that the postseason is about stars. And their stars have starred. Schwarber, add him to that list, Castellanos. Their stars have been really good. And so they're a postseason team, and they're doing the kinds of things that postseason teams do.
Yeah, and no star brighter than Bryce Harper. You look at this guy. He was a Washington National, made a big name for himself there, winning an NL MVP, became one of the best on-base guys in the game. He signs, in my opinion, under market value for a player of his caliber. 13 years, $330 million, no opt-outs, because he just wanted the stability of being in one place for the rest of his career. Right, this is a guy who's now a 7-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, 2-time MVP, an NLCS MVP now. Hits the biggest home run of his entire career, and arguably the biggest home run in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 5 of that NLCS. Bottom of the 8th, 2 outs, tying run on base. He hits a 2-run homer to turn a 3-2 deficit into a 4-3 victory. We know it's the biggest home run of his career. Is that the biggest home run in Phillies history, and how special was that moment?
I mean, it's up there. It's probably in the top 2 or 3, and you could very easily make the argument it's number 1. It put them in the World Series. It brought them back from a deficit at the time. So yeah, I mean, it was enormous. And I mean, look, I'm not old enough to have seen Dick Sisler's home run in 1950 that put them in the World Series, or I was there when Matt Stairs hit his home run in 08 in the NLCS. I guess you put Harper's above that because it was a clinching game, but that certainly was as big a home run as there is in Phillies history. So yeah, I mean, it's up there, and it might be number 1, but it is definitely in the conversation. And it's been his month. It's been his postseason. And what's super interesting about it is that he didn't have a good finish to the season. He came back from the broken thumb, and he was really kind of struggling. He was really kind of feeling for his timing at the plate. He kept telling me over and over again, I'm slow on fastballs, and I'm too out front on breaking stuff, and I'm kind of stuck in the middle, and I don't feel like myself, and I need more at bats. And there was no guarantee that he was going to find that timing before the postseason ended for the Phillies, or before the season ended, whenever that was going to be. And I think the biggest swing he took was Game 2 in St. Louis. He stayed back on a breaking ball from Miles Michaelis, hit it into the bullpen, first at bat of the game, second inning, and really from there he's just been a Superman. He has been. He's hitting 400. He's got 5 home runs. They've been big home runs. He's gotten big hits. I mean, think back to Game 4 against the Padres in the double that puts them ahead. And he kind of goes crazy at second base, talking about this is his house and whatnot. So, I mean, it's been his month without a doubt. And if they can finish it off and win the World Series, I think we'll talk about this month and this postseason for Bryce Harper as one of the better individual postseasons that anyone's ever had.
And you mentioned him kind of going crazy at second base after that double against the Padres. And I look at the home run that he hit to clinch them going to the World Series. And you watch him round the bases, and he rounds the bases so calmly. He crosses home plate. He's not overly exuberant. He says something to the camera. He goes and celebrates with his teammates, but there's no chest puffing, no fist pounding. He looked like a guy who realized the enormity of the moment. And instead of making it about himself, he made it about the Phillies and their fans. He almost looked overwhelmed by what he had just done. Like he understood what he did, but there was no huge celebration. It was like, holy crap, I just did that.
Yeah, and I think he actually did say that to somebody in the dugout. I'm trying to think now who it was, if it was JT Realmuto. Somebody said that they got back in the dugout and Harper said, "Did I just do that?" or "I just did that," or something like that. And, there's a famous moment in recent Phillies history, Game 4 of the divisional series in 09 against the Rockies, where they're behind late is at the bat rack, and he's due to bat, like, I forget what it was, 5th or 6th that inning, and he says, "Just get me to the plate, boys." And they get him to the plate, and he gets a big hit, and they win the game. And this kind of had that feeling to me, like he comes up the steps, and he says to Kevin Long, the hitting coach, and I think Realmuto overheard it as well. He said, "Let's do something they remember." Mm-hmm. And that line is going to go down with "Get me to the plate, boys," as like just a superstar hitter, slugger at the top of his game, feeling as confident as could be that if he could get to the plate and do something, or if he could get there, he could do something special. And, Nick Castellanos contrasted that. This was really, really interesting. He contrasted what you're talking about, Harper's reaction to the whole thing, with a grand slam that Harper hit in 2019 at Citizens Bank Park against the Cubs. Castellanos was with the Cubs. And it was his biggest hit as a Philly to that point in his first season as a Philly. And he hits this like second deck grand slam and goes absolutely berserk around the bases. And he runs the bases like he's sprinting, and he's yelling the whole time. And, it was a walk-off homer. And so of course there's certain emotion that goes with that. But I do think that your point is well taken, that he was in complete control of everything in that moment, from the swing to the reaction to everything else. And it speaks to, I think, just what he's going through this month and how confident he is and how under control and just absolutely just in command he is of everything he's doing. And that's a special player on a special stage.
Yeah, the reaction just added to the beauty of the moment. It's a moment that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. It was absolutely incredible. Also incredible has been the Philly starting rotation this postseason. You look at how good the offense has been. It seemed like every home run that they've hit has been huge. Well, every start has been one good one after the other, with the exception of Aaron Nola, who has gotten knocked around in each of his last 2 starts. He's arguably their best pitcher. He posts up 30 starts a year, pitches very, very well. But the last 2 outings have not been good for him. Have you noticed anything different about him the last couple of outings? Is maybe the moment getting too big for him, or is this just a situation where he happened to have a bad day under the brightest of lights?
Yeah, I mean, so like obviously Zach Wheeler has been lights out the entire postseason, and he's their ace, and he's their best guy, and he's on the mound tonight in Game 2, and they have the ultimate amount of confidence in Wheeler. Their formula all along has been, Wheeler, Nola at the top of the rotation. If they could line up their rotation in a way to get those 2 guys pitching the first 2 games, they think they can win any series. Mm-hmm. And that was the case, really, in St. Louis. I mean, they went Wheeler, Nola, sweep. That was the case against Atlanta. They, even though Wheeler lost the Game 2 start, he pitched really well. Nola pitched really well in Game 3. Nola didn't pitch as well in San Diego in Game 2 in the NLCS, and obviously did not pitch as well last night in the first game of the World Series. I don't think that there's anything that stands out in terms of like, well, this is happening or this is not happening. I don't think the moment has gotten too big for him. That was a bugaboo for him really up until this year, because people would point to September and they'd say like Aaron Nola fades in September and the Phillies fade in September, and Nola's not a big game pitcher and whatnot. He pitched the clinch game of the in Houston on October 3rd to get them in the playoffs, and then, as I mentioned, pitched great in St. Louis, pitched great against Atlanta. So he kind of chased that ghost away. And I just think the last couple of starts have been, a case of not hitting his spots and not locating as well. I didn't actually get a chance to talk to him last night because of everything else that was going on and that happened in that game. He was kind of a footnote, as it turned out, to that game. But I'd be interested in talking to him today, and I'm going to try to do that about, because he's probably going to pitch again in this series, about, what went on last night early in that game. But look, Aaron Nola is not a guy who, can miss his location and still get away with it most of the time, because he doesn't throw 97 like Wheeler or 98, and he throws more 94. And if he misses, he's going to get hit. And I think from where I sat, and when I look back at the 2 Tucker home runs last night, that was a case of just a pitch that maybe came back over the plate or a location that was missed. So I think the margin for error for Nola is slimmer. What I would say is this, that in the first half of the postseason, I agree with you that their starting rotation had been really, really good, and they were getting great starts from both Wheeler and Nola and really riding their starters. I think lately they've ridden their bullpen and they've ridden Rob Thompson, because he's made every move with that bullpen, and every move's been the right one. I'll admit, sitting there last night in the 5th inning, he goes to Jose Alvarado, and I'm thinking, like, is this a first-time World Series manager who's getting a little bit desperate in this first World Series game? Because it's only game 1, and you're going to the back of your bullpen in the middle of the game. And, everything Rob Thompson's done for several months now has been the right move. And it was the right move to go to Alvarado to shut off that inning and get Yordan Alvarez. And it was the right move to go to Ranger Suarez, his game 3 starter in the 7th inning, to get Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. So, Rob Thompson managed the game of his life last night, and I think the work of the bullpen and the guts of the manager were kind of the pitching story for them last night.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Rob Thompson. I didn't know if we'd have a chance to get to him, but look, Joe Girardi fired 51 games into the season, despite the fact that they won the day that he got fired. 22-29 record. Rob Thompson takes over. They win another 8 straight after that, 15-17 overall, and never really looked back. I think they had the 3rd best record in baseball from the day Joe Girardi got fired moving forward. Thompson rewarded by having the interim tag removed and being extended for 2 years. How much of the success of this team was due to the changing of the manager, or was it more so a roster that needed the wake-up call of their poor play getting a manager fired?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a combination of things, and you hit on 2 of them there. If you look at the timing of it all, they were 22-29. They played a really tough schedule in May. They had a very soft schedule coming up in June. So Dave Dombrowski knew what he was doing when he decided to do this on June 3rd. I know he thought that changing the manager would be kind of like taking a defibrillator, to the clubhouse. Like it would shock the system, because that's what happens when, everyone's, they're all human beings, and regardless of what anybody, how anybody thought things were going, you never want to see somebody lose their job. So I think he thought, okay, we'll take a defibrillator to the clubhouse. We'll sort of shock the system by changing the manager. And also, we have this soft schedule coming up, so we can make up some ground that way as well.
Sure.
And it did. It served those dual purposes. But the thing about Rob Thompson that's been unbelievable to watch is that he's been here a while. He was the bench coach under Gabe Kapler. He's been here since 2018. He's an even, steady, calm, just sort of like, absolutely nothing bothers the guy kind of guy. And if you watch these press conferences in the playoffs, it's almost like he speaks in a monotone. It's almost like he's, you could almost fall asleep listening to him sometimes. But, I think the players have sort of taken on that personality. And you see that when they get down 5 runs in game 1 of the World Series, and they kind of look at one another and are like, okay, let's just come back. It's not, there's never any panic. There's never any drama. There's never any big deal. They think they can handle any situation. And it comes from the manager. And I'll tell you a quick story. He has this way of disarming people and players in particular, and sort of taking the pressure off in various situations. And so Alec Boehm is the young 3rd baseman, and midway through the season with Harper out with the broken thumb, they wanted to move Boehm up to 3rd in the order. He'd really struggled, last year and a little bit early this year, but he was swinging the bat well. And so Thompson goes to him on the team plane. They were going from one city to another, and Thompson goes to him and he says, "Hey, I got a question for you. Are you scared of hitting 3rd?" And Boehm looks at him like he's crazy. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, if I bat you third, would you be scared? And he kind of makes him laugh. And Bohm's like, no, of course not. If you want me to hit third, I'll hit third. And, so like it was taking a situation that, could have put pressure on the guy to bat him in a higher spot in the order, in the Harper spot. And instead he just sort of takes that and it just, he turns it into a situation where they can laugh over it. I've seen him go up to Nick Maton. Nick Maton's the utility infielder who was playing the outfield a lot late in the season when Nick Castellanos was hurt. I saw him go up to him one day in San Francisco and say, "You're playing right field tomorrow. Try not to screw it up." And it makes Maton laugh. And it kind of, so that's Rob Thompson in a nutshell. I think he's just very steady, very calm, and he's been exactly what this particular group has needed.
Yeah, it's been remarkable to see the turnaround they've had, and now they're just 3 wins away from a World Series championship. They go to Houston, they win Game 1 in remarkable fashion. They've been playing with house money all postseason, Scott, and now you look at it, a split was really what you're hoping for in Houston before you head back to Philly for 3 games. If they can find a way to win today to go up 2-0 and they have their ace in Wheeler on the mound, does this series make it back to Houston?
It's hard to say no to that because obviously, the Astros won 106 games and they're a terrific team. So yeah, I mean, look, I'd be surprised if it's a super short series. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to come back, but who knows? I mean, I thought it would go back to Atlanta. I thought it would go back to San Diego, and the Phillies wrapped up those series before it had a chance to get there.
Yeah, they seem to be the ultimate team of destiny. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not betting against them. That's for damn sure. Scott, before we let you go, what can we plug for you? What do you got coming up?
Oh, just more World Series coverage, and just everything at everything at Inquirer.com and stuff like that. We'll have full coverage of the World Series.
Excellent. Scott, thank you for taking some time for us. Great talking with you. Enjoy the rest of the World Series. Have a great offseason as well.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right, take care. That was Scott Lauber, the beat writer for the Philadelphia Phillies for the Philadelphia Inquirer, taking about 20 minutes for us today to talk about the Phillies, Bryce Harper, and their magical postseason run. I want to remind you that the Bat Around is brought to you by the Tyus Bowser Show, and the next Tyus Bowser Show is this Tuesday, November 1st, at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill. That's at 5506 Harford Road. Tyus and a special guest will join Rita and Glenn, and this is your opportunity to meet Baltimore football stars while getting the inside scoop on the purple and black. The Tyus Bowser Show is a partnership of Pressbox and Great Eights Memorabilia and is brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Grill. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. And if you happen to miss a Tyus Bowser Show, don't worry. You can check it out Friday nights throughout the season on 105.7 The Fan. When we come back in the Bet Around and take to Rake to wrap things up here on the Bat Around.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also, inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area. And Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Welcome back to the Bet Around. It's time for the Bet Around, which is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The Bet Around, again, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. You can come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. For the Bet Around today, I'm looking at two things. I'm taking the under on 7 runs at -110. I look at, you got Zach Wheeler going up against Framber Valdez. I think it's going to be the exact opposite of yesterday.
Totally agree.
I think you're getting at least 6 innings out of both of these guys, and I think that they're each going to give up 1 to 2 runs. I look at the pitcher's duel today, so I'm taking the under on 7 runs at -110. And I'm also taking Alex Bregman at +500 to hit a home run. He's had a good postseason. He's hitting 324 with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs in this postseason. The Astros are down 1-0. They don't want to go down 2-0 at home. Bregman is a huge clutch performer when it comes to the postseason. I look for him to hit a home run to kind of ignite a little bit of a offensive display for the Astros. Again, taking the under at -7, but I think that the Astros will score maybe 4 runs, maybe win this game 4-3, and it'll be highlighted by a big Bregman home run at some point in the game.
I have a feeling that whoever the last team is to score wins this game, because it is going to be, I really believe that both of the starting pitchers tonight are going to go out there and give them 6 innings. And, whether it's 1 or 2 runs they give up, I don't think they're going to give up a lot. So it is going to be a tight game. And I think it's going to come down to who scores in the end. And I think the 8th or 9th inning are going to be really interesting. But, of course, guys like Alex Bregman, always a great bet because he has that playoff pedigree. Altuve, we're kind of just waiting for him to get hot. So those are guys that for sure are great bets for tonight.
Yeah, and Altuve, 4 for his last 12 after starting the postseason, 0 for 25. That's a good bet to have a nice World Series. Zach is going to tell us about the latest edition of Press Box, of the Press Box print edition, and that is what is that's what Take the Rake is brought to you by, the latest edition of the Pressbox print issue.
The latest edition of Pressbox, it's available now. On the cover, new Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also inside, we introduced you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area, and both smoke up profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
All right, thank you very much for that, Zach. It is now time for Take to Rake, and I believe this is the final Take to Rake of the season.
And I want to say it was a tight one this week.
This one was a tight one. I took Jose Altuve and Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Altuve went 4 for 14 with a double, a walk. I think he also struck out 4 times.
Yeah.
4 for 14, that's a 286 batting average for you math whizzes at home. Bryce Harper, on the other hand, he went 6 for 12. He had 2 doubles, that big home run to push the Phillies into the World Series. He drove in 4. He had the 1 walk and just the 2 strikeouts. So those are pretty good numbers for me. Now, you took Alex Bregman, who went 4 for 12. He had 2 doubles, an RBI, a walk, and a strikeout. And then I look at Manny Machado, who you took.
Well, doesn't play a whole lot.
Yeah, he did not play a whole lot. I think he did get 2 games in. I believe he got 2 games in as opposed to the 3 for the rest of the guys. This was the one that I was hoping I was going to be able to figure out while you were doing that live read, and I didn't get it.
Should have picked a Philly.
Yeah. But Machado, he went 2 for 8. He had 1 home run, he had 1 RBI, and no walks and 3 strikeouts in those 2 games. So Bregman 4 for 12 with 2 doubles, an RBI, a walk, and a K. Machado 2 for 8 with 1 double, 1 RBI, no walks, and 3 Ks. So combined, they ended up going what is that? 6 for 20. They went 6 for 20. 4 strikeouts. Harper and Altuve combined to go, I believe it was 10 for 22? No, 10 for 24. 10 for 24. I think I won.
Slightly, yeah.
Yeah. I think I won. You having Manny Machado.
Yeah, it hurt me a little bit.
Really hurt.
Yeah.
Really hurt. So this week, we're each just going to pick one guy.
Okay.
Because we're in the World Series now. I can't take Harper or Altuve. You can't take Alex Bregman.
Right.
Who am I going to take? I don't want to take Schwarber. I just think he strikes out too much.
Yeah.
I'm going to take JT Realmuto.
Okay, that's a great pick.
He had a big game 1,
yeah.
and I think that's a guy who, along with Harper, can carry a team. It would be Bryce Harper for me if I could take him again.
Well, I was about to say, is there any question who I'm taking right here? Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper
is my selection.
So we're both taking Phillies players for Take to Rake. We will certainly see how it goes. Let me just note that in our show notes for next week. This is the final Take to Rake. Even if they play 2 games next weekend, it's not worth it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we'll just do it here. Paul takes Realmuto.
Which we got to also figure out what the final standings are.
I keep saying I'm going to do it.
Well, I think it's probably a better idea to do it at the end of the season so we can just finally wrap it up and then get it all.
Yeah, I think
we'll figure that out.
I've had a really good postseason.
Yeah, you have.
Run,
you have.
But you were dominant for a stretch there in the regular season.
I would say I was at least 6 ahead in the regular season. You're probably 2 or 3 ahead in the postseason.
Yeah,
so far.
I think I've won every week.
Yeah.
In the postseason. So, we'll see how it goes to close things out for Take to Rake. It's going to be a sad 4 months without it, but it just makes it that much sweeter when we finally get back to it. So our final thoughts. And my final thought is, again, the Orioles are rumored to be in on Jacob deGrom. As much as I like him, I don't trust that he can post up for 30 starts. And if you're going to have to pay him $40 million a year to make 15 starts, I don't see how that's worth it. I don't see Mike Elias dipping his toes in those waters for a guy that you're not sure that can. Now, if you know that he's healthy and you know he can make 30 starts a year for you for 5 years, okay, I just don't think he is. I just don't think that you can trust that. And I do think that I don't know what to think as far as the offense is concerned. I have no idea what liftoff means, but I am really, really excited to see what's going to happen as early as 2 weeks from now. Next show, we'll be talking more in depth about what could really happen because it'll be all that we're focused on.
Right.
And it's an exciting World Series. I'm excited to watch how this thing plays out.
Yeah, I mean, my final thought is, I look at what the Orioles have the chance to do in this offseason, and I've talked about it a lot, how I think they need a veteran leader, and I really think that's going to be important. Michael Brantley, I would say, look at what the Astros have done over the past few years and how veteran leadership has really moved them along and created that mentality of let's just show up and play. Let's just show up and win. And they become the expected winner because of that. And I think a lot of it has to do with guys like Carlos Beltran and all the veteran leaders like Michael Brantley who have led them through this time. So Michael Brantley, JD Martinez, these are great fits. The Orioles need that veteran guy. You can't rely on only what the farm system provides you because no one is going to bring that experience and leadership. Adley Rutschman has plenty of leadership qualities, but he doesn't have that World Series experience that a guy like Michael Brantley or JD Martinez does. So I think that's really important, and the Astros are a great testament to that.
Yeah, and I'm selling myself more and more on JD Martinez.
Me too.
If that's the guy that they bring in, it's almost like bringing in a lefty.
Yeah.
And even if he only hits 20 home runs, he still hit 43 doubles this year. He's still a productive player, and he's still you have to worry about him in the heart of that order. And if he's sandwiched between, Gunnar Henderson and Ryan Mountcastle, that is
and he knows how to win. The guy knows how to win, and he's a good leader.
Yeah, that would be a solid piece, and I like the comparison to Beltran for the Astros. Beltran and McCann, for that matter.
McCann, too.
And
sure.
Verlander for the Astros in 2017. I really like that comparison, and I think that's exactly what this Orioles team needs. Buckle up, guys, not to use Buck's statement, but
big Mets fan over here.
It's going to be really, really interesting, and that's starting pretty soon here down the stretch.
Can't wait.
Ravens, they've won 2 games in a row.
Yep.
They are the only team to have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter of every game this year. And look, they won on Sunday. They were up by 10 in the fourth quarter. They ended up winning that game 23-20. Then they win again on Thursday night. They end up winning that game 27-22. And the defense for me, in each of the last 2 games, it's like it took them a drive and a half.
Yeah.
To get, so it's like the first drive of the game in both the Browns game and the Bucs game. It's like, all right, let's sit back. Let's see what they're going to run on offense.
Script the drive,
though. They're going to come down, and if they go down and score, okay. They go down and score touchdowns. Then the next drive, they get a big play, get into field goal range, and then that's when the Ravens dig their heels in and don't really give anything up until the fourth quarter.
Right.
The offense in the first half of this Bucs game, 30 passes to 7 runs. They ran the ball 7 times for 27 yards. Threw the ball 30 times. Lamar Jackson had 144 passing yards in the first half, but they're down 10-3 at the half. They come out, they score 3 touchdowns and a field goal on 4 consecutive drives, rushed for 206 yards in the second half. And I look at the offense that they ran in the second half, and I think to myself, that is the perfect offense for the Ravens. Lamar, 8 for 8, 94 yards, rushes for 42 yards. He throws 2 touchdown passes in the second half. That is the kind of performance that's going to win them football games down the stretch here. You're getting to the second half of the season now. They're 5-3. They're in first place. They control their own destiny here, and they play 1 game in the next 23 days. Has an opportunity to get Bateman, Edwards, and Mark Andrews healthy and get guys like Ajabo and Tyus Bowser back, and Marcus Williams for that matter. I don't know that he'll be back before December, but this is a huge opportunity for the Ravens to get healthy and make a nice little push here for the playoffs. And when you factor in that they don't play a team that currently has a winning record until the last game of the season against the Bengals, things may be locked up by then. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, he's out for an extended period of time. Things may be locked up in this division by then. It's as down as we were after that loss to the Giants. That's as excited as I am about the team right now, because I think that they have a great opportunity to really stack some wins.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what they did against the Bucs in the first half, and it was the same old offense with unoriginal plays, and I think it was plays the Bucs the team a million times before and watching the tape before preparing for this game. In the second half, they came out, and it was a completely different look of an offense. They were much more creative. You saw a lot of different play fakes that were getting everything more involved. Devin Duvernay had an excellent second half. They got him so involved. And DeMarcus Robinson had a really underrated game as well, because what they were able to do is they were basically taking what was given to them. You know, if you've got a corner who's not pressing and he's playing 5 or 6 yards off of a guy, then you do a little curl route, you do a little dig route, or something that can get the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hand really fast and get an easy completion for 5 or 6 yards. And that's what they started doing. And when they started doing that, it made all the world of difference. And they started looking like the Ravens again. And that allowed them, once they got that short passing game going, it allowed them to get the run going as well. And they looked really good. Gus Edwards, I know he's not even 100% healthy, but he looks excellent. Kenyon Drake had a pretty solid game. I wish they'd get Justice a little more involved, because I do think he's a really good running back.
He's a nice change of pace back.
He is, and he's very shifty, gets a lot of elusive moves. They are a team who's got to keep that same mindset and going forward. They've got to do the short passes, play fakes, different things to shake it up, and not what we've seen over the past 3 years with Greg Roman.
Isaiah Likely, his coming out party, 6 catches, 77 yards. He caught the touchdown pass after Mark Andrews gets hurt. He was huge. He was huge. He made you not. You're always going to miss Mark Andrews if he's not on the field, but he made you kind of not miss him.
I don't think you win that game without him.
Yeah, you absolutely don't, in my opinion. He had that big reception on a scramble after he scored the touchdown by Lamar. And then he recovered the onside kick just for the little coup de grace. The offensive line is getting better and better each week. I mean, Ben Powers has had a good year, and he's maybe your weakest offensive lineman. Tyler Linderbaum is just dominating up front.
Dominant.
Ronnie Stanley is back to being Ronnie Stanley. Morgan Moses is quietly solid at right tackle. And Kevin Zeitler, he just doesn't give up anything.
No.
That offensive line, and if you can have Ricard in there blocking, they're only going to get stronger. This team is on the uptick, getting healthy at the right time, I think.
Yeah.
And the defense. Mike McDonald, man, that pass rush, they're quietly I think they're in the top 5 for sacks in the NFL. They had only a couple of sacks, both of them by Justin Houston this past weekend, but they got a lot of pressure. Justin Houston has 6 sacks in 5 games. 4 sacks in the last 2 games, and he's played just 40 snaps.
Yeah, Houston, he brings that vet presence, and he knows he's one of those guys who's lost his ability physically in a way, but he has that mental idea of just how to get to the quarterback. The swim moves, whatever he's doing, the power rush. It's so impressive watching him really dominate. And Justin Houston's still great at age, 34?
33, 34, something like that. And honestly, limiting his snap count is keeping his legs fresh.
Yep.
It's helping him be much more effective when he is in the game. So, and Jason Pierre-Paul is still a presence that you have to account for. So and Patrick Queen is getting a lot better. He's getting a lot better.
Significantly.
Yeah. I really like the play of the defense right now. Geno Stone stepping in huge for Marcus Williams. He hasn't been a world beater, but he's been really solid.
He made a huge change of pace play where
on third down
where he knocked the ball out of Chris Godwin's hands. That was one of the biggest plays of the game. I think if Chris Godwin catches that ball and gets that first down, this game could have gone completely different because the Bucs at the moment had all the momentum.
Tom Brady, is he done?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's done.
People have been saying this for years. This is one of those seasons where they're in maybe the weakest division in football.
Yeah.
And they could sneak into the playoffs by winning that division at 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And then you see Tom Brady make a run, and he ends up winning a Super Bowl.
But it's the first time in 20 years the Brady's had a 3-game losing streak. I believe it is. So that hasn't happened. So
their inability to run
different.
The ball, especially Leonard Fournette, is such a good back, and their inability to run the ball is mind-blowing to me, and it's costing them games. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Bat Around. Special thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to Stan the Fan, Charles, for his weekly segment, which was just fantastic today. And thanks to Scott Lauber of the Philadelphia Inquirer for coming on and talking some Phillies in the World Series for us. We will be back next week with another edition of the Bat Around, talking maybe the end of the World Series, talking some